What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of From the Sideline. I'm back here with Pete and homeboy GK. How you guys doing today?
What's up, brother?
What's good, everybody? Let's go.
We got some good topics on here, and you guys know I don't like wasting time, so we're gonna jump right into the topics, man. So how'd you guys do with your picks this week, this Sunday? I know we got one more game left. We got the Rams versus San Francisco. How'd you guys do? Let's start with Thursday's game. I think we kind of touched on it a little bit. Miami beat Baltimore, which was a crazy upset. What are you guys' thoughts on that game?
Well, needless to say, I got it wrong, but
So did I.
Yeah, I mean, the upsets are always going to be the pick that you're going to get wrong the most based on because of the fact it's an upset and nobody really thinks that they are going to win the game. Yeah, like I said before, Miami definitely surprised everybody, and I had a feeling that was going to lead into this week with a few more upsets.
GK?
Miami surprised me. Well, it was not even so much Miami surprised me, it was more of the Ravens surprised me how much they struggled against Miami.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's they were primetime underdog at home, you know.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
So let's get to the Dallas Atlanta game. What's your feelings on that, GK? Dallas comes out with a good victory.
Smash them, bro. Dallas really showed me something for sure because I honestly thought that it was going to be a little bit closer considering how Denver whooped their ass last week. So
a bounce back game is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always do that when I pick basketball. I always think about, all right, this team lost. This got to be a bounce back game.
Yeah, so Dallas is looking scary. Whenever Dak Prescott has time in the pocket and isn't getting rushed, like he's going to be on point. And,
they have a good offensive line too.
Yeah, so and then the Falcons they just really look that bad. So
I mean, only 3 points. What's your thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, perfect game for Dallas. I mean, we knew Atlanta was a little iffy. You know, they've played good in some games here and out. But we knew that they weren't that great of a team. So when you get beat and spanked the way that Dallas did last week, that's a good team to have to go against the following week. And another thing too, we tend to take one game and all of a sudden we're ready to write somebody off, possibly like, oh, we've been calling them our Super Bowl favorites, or we've been thinking that they were the top team in this division or that division in any sport just because they lose one game. And especially in football, that's why we haven't had a team go undefeated all season long and break that Miami Dolphins record from years ago, because it's okay to be an amazing, great team and still have one bad off week. It can happen, just because Dallas got crushed last week or just because Buffalo lost to the Jaguars last week. It's okay to have one bad game. It's how you bounce back the next week so that we really don't think there's a problem over there with your organization.
What about Matt Ryan, GK? What's going on with Matt? 9 for 21, 117 yards, 2 interceptions. Do you think the Falcons need to get up out of there with that? Get him up out of there? The time for Matt to find a new home?
So I've never really been that big of a Matt Ryan fan. But that being said, I don't think he's ever really necessarily been their problem in Atlanta because he's not bad. He's just not like carried a team on my whole back good. So that being said, I mean, he looks pretty decent throughout the rest of the year. So I would give him a break just for this one game, give him a pass. And I feel like maybe he's probably still got 2, maybe 3 good seasons where like he can be serviceable for you. So my thing is I would draft for the future for sure, whether it's next year or the year after, but leave him on the bench and let Matt play. And yeah, I mean, start planning for the future. But honestly, he's given them so much, that organization so much for so long and been so loyal. I think they should try to take a little bit of a risk and, use some of their assets to maybe try to make another Super Bowl run like next year or the year after, just to give him that opportunity. Just because he's been their face of their franchise for so long, so maybe give him one more shot at a serious run. But other than that, it's a very, very short window. and, definitely get your guy. And I would leave him on the bench, like almost like a redshirt freshman, So that's my take on Atlanta.
What are your thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan almost, I feel like it's kind of like the Matt Stafford, right? Like Matt Stafford, Detroit, but Matt Stafford didn't leave Detroit because Detroit thought we need to move on from Matt Stafford because we can't win with him. Matt Stafford, Detroit, it was time for Matt Stafford to finally win because of all the talent that he has. And I feel like Matt Stafford gave all his time in his entire career to Detroit the same way that Matt Ryan has over with Atlanta. So with that being said, Matt Ryan, it wasn't the problem. You know what I mean? It's just the right pieces need to be around him. I still Paul left in his career. And it doesn't hurt to maybe draft his successor, kind of like maybe how Green Bay drafted Jordan Love. Doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to move away from Aaron Rodgers, but you at least want to get a guy in there that can be groomed by a really good starter. So in 2-3 seasons, when it is time for Matt Ryan to go somewhere else or possibly retire, you at least have a guy that's ready to step in and got to learn from a guy as good as Matt Ryan.
Well, I agree with both of you, but I think Matt Ryan isn't a bad quarterback, but I don't think he's an elite quarterback. I think that's the problem. I think in that Super Bowl, he really showed that he can't lead a team, because to have that big of a lead and to crumble like that, it's partially on his back because he controls most of the game when it comes to scoring. So yeah, let's get to the New Orleans and Tennessee game. Tennessee beat New Orleans. I had New Orleans winning.
Yeah, that game was closer than I actually thought it would be. I think Tennessee has just shown something. And I would say they've shown something defensively. The defense is just playing really, really well, man. No Derrick Henry, obviously, and they're still finding a way to get it done. And if that means you got to keep some of these games low scoring now and do it on the defensive side, then that's what you got to do. They just actually put Julio Jones on IR now. So now that's one less weapon that they have.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they're still getting wins, So kudos to them. That defense looks good. Not surprising that the defense as good as it is when you have a head coach like Mike Vrabel, who's a big defensive guy. Tennessee is scary, man. Tennessee is very, very scary. And it's kind of nice to see a team that can slip under the radar because nobody talks about them. And nobody's going to talk about them when you lose your superstar and the face of your franchise in Henry.
GK?
6-game winning streak, bro.
8-2.
6-game winning. That's great. Yeah, and like honestly the final score, I don't really think shows, because the Titans were up 23-12. So in the fourth, and then the Saints backdoor got 10 points. So really, the Saints had control basically throughout the whole game. I mean, it was tied mid second quarter, I want to say, tied. And then Tennessee got a touchdown at the end. And then third quarter, they pulled away. And the Saints couldn't really do anything until the very end of the game. But at that point, it was all for nothing anyway.
We could be saying, we could be talking a different story today, because I believe they missed 2 extra points, which forced them to have to go for the 2-point conversion. And they missed the 2-point conversion. They get that 2-point conversion. We're in overtime, and maybe we're talking about something different right now.
Right. I mean, I had the Saints to win, so,
Yeah, I had them to win too. But Tennessee in that 6-game winning streak, they beat the Chiefs 27-3. They beat the Rams 28-16. And now the Saints, I mean, it's a tough winning streak. They beat the Bills in a close game, 23-31. I mean, you might be right. They might be a little slept on, man. They might be just a little bit slept on.
Especially when they started the season off 2-2. That's how their season started, with Derrick Henry. And now it's just like, it's almost at the point, it's like, well, what do you guys want to talk about when it comes to Tennessee? All you got to do is say 6-game winning streak and we can move on. Because 6-game winning streaks speak volumes right now in the NFL.
And they're beating top teams. I mean, even though the Chiefs are struggling, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Rams, who's a top team, they beat the Bills, who's a top team.
The resume is unreal right now. Unreal.
I mean, they're not only
It's-
winning the games they're supposed to win, they're winning the games that people don't think they're gonna win. So,
Yes.
it's confusing to me because I don't know. I can't get a really good grasp of their defense, right? Because I mean, in the beginning of the year, I'm like, their defense doesn't really have a heck of a lot of talent. Like, they have a couple of studs, but, and then, you know, Vrabel's track record previous to that in the year and the year before that, actually, the Titans defense kind of let me down because I figured that they would always have a great defense, being that he was their head coach. And that just never really came to be, but until we're seeing it right now, you know? So I don't know if from a philosophical and schematic standpoint that maybe the players are just all starting to figure it out and they're like, all right, now we know exactly like what we're supposed to be doing and how we need to do it. But either way, yeah, it's a good sign for them because, you know, not having Henry and Julio, that really puts a lot on Tannehill and their offensive line. So to have their defense to be able to be playing like they have been playing, yeah, they could be a legitimate contender based on that.
You know,
anything to add, Pete?
yeah, Tannehill. You know, it's funny. This team didn't start playing well till Tannehill got here a couple seasons ago. You know, or should I say, until he came off the bench, filled in for Mariota a couple seasons ago. You know, they go to the playoffs. I believe he won a comeback player of the year that year. They lost in an AFC championship game, and they would have been in the Super Bowl if it wasn't for the Chiefs. They beat Baltimore the week before that in the playoffs. And then last season, they didn't have as deep of a playoff run as the season before that, but they still were in the playoffs. So I still call that consistent progress. And who knows? This might be the season now. I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl. I'm not even saying they're going to get there. But based on what they've done the last 2 seasons and based on how well they're playing right now, there's no more writing Tennessee off. Tennessee is a top team right now in the NFL, and teams better put that on notice.
For their next 6 games too are against weak opponents. Like they got the Dolphins, the Texans, the Jags. I think they're probably going to get to 12 wins. So
that's a good point. You brought that up because I noticed that, and I added them as my defense in fantasy football because I saw this weak schedule coming up for them, and that's a good. And you know what? They deserve a weak schedule. When you just knocked off all those tough teams that we just talked about, your Chiefs, your Bills, your Rams, now it's time for them to really add some wins on here. We could be looking at a number 1 seed in the AFC going into the playoffs. Okay, the route to the Super Bowl might actually go through Tennessee.
It's crazy because if you said, hey, in the middle of the year, they're going to lose Julio and Henry, like based on knowing that, you know, are they going to be a top AFC contender? You'd be like, hell no. But they still are. So.
All right, let's move on to the Indianapolis. I always struggle to say that the first time. I don't know why. In Jacksonville game. Indy comes out with the win. I had Indy winning.
Yeah. Jacksonville, good win for them last week. But you can't say they stepped up in competition because they beat a really good team last week. But they did go against another really good defense. Jacksonville just has what I call young issues going on over there. That's the best way to put it. You know, maybe some of these losses will be wins in the future, but just right now they're trying to figure things out. Trevor Lawrence, young quarterback. And like I said last week, I really, really, really like the Colts defense. And I think Carson Wentz these last few weeks has been playing a lot better.
GK?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Jags, they got it close. It was the beginning of the 4th quarter. They made it a 3-point game. You know, Trevor Lawrence, he struggled a little bit. I think he was only about 50% or even maybe a little less. But no picks.
35.
Yeah. So under 50%.
Touchdowns.
No picks though, which is good. He did lose a fumble, I believe, though. But yeah, if I'm a Jaguars fan, I'm looking at it like, all right, you know, we were able to at least hang in there with a pretty good Colts team. So, you know, if there's any sort of silver lining, you could say like, oh, they look like they're at least improving. But yeah, the Colts did what they needed to do. I think they were kind of just in cruise control.
I
But
mean, it
they were
seems
able to
like,
run.
not to cut you off, but it seems like it was a defensive game because Indy comes out 17-6 in the first quarter, then both of them scored three the second, nobody scores in the third, and then Jaguars make that push to come back 8-3 in the fourth.
Mhm.
When you're a team like the Jaguars, when you're a team like the Detroit Lions, when you're a team, I'm sorry, GK, like the New York Jets, right? You can take positive out of losses, because it's not going to be your year. You're probably not making the playoffs or anything like that. So it's more of these head coaches seeing who's going to be around for next season, who's progressing, who's playing better. And, a loss is a loss, a win is a win, and we play to win the games. But when a team is this young and they're trying to figure it out, you just need to see constant improvement from week to week to week. So when another team, you can't look at it the same way like that. These young teams, there's a couple of them where it's like, even in a loss, you can sit there and say, you know what, maybe we're headed in the right direction. So I think Trevor Lawrence will figure it out eventually, and some of these will be wins at some point in time. Maybe not this season, but maybe next season.
Yeah, GK, finish your point. Sorry for cutting you off.
Oh no, that was basically it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
But I just found it like it's strange. Like they come out and go 17 and then 6 the rest of the game.
Mm.
It's like you gave your best in the first quarter, and then that was
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I don't know if they were just looking past it, like they just took their foot off the gas and they're like, all right, we don't got to worry, really. We got this.
I mean, they pulled it out, but they're a 5-5 team for a reason. I see. Like
Yeah.
they're a 5-5 team for a reason. All right, next game we got Cleveland, Sucko Browns. We got the Browns versus Patriots. Patriots blow them out 45-7.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. Like
I can tell you this. Yeah, I feel like no matter who the quarterback was that they drafted this year, and this is not a knock on Mac Jones, because right now he's the best quarterback out of all these rookies so far. That's what he's proving. But I think it has a big part to do with the systems he's in as well. Because let's be honest, Mac Jones is not on the Patriots if the Patriots had the number 1 overall pick. Trevor Lawrence was going number 1 overall to whatever team had the opportunity to take him number 1 overall. And I feel like if Trevor Lawrence or any of the other rookie quarterbacks that are playing right now, they'd be probably doing some of the same things that Mac Jones is probably doing over there in the Patriots, because they're just such a well-organized organization and they have such good head coaches. And Josh McDaniels is a great offensive coordinator. But with that being said, Mac Jones is the guy they have, and they are grooming and doing everything right. The play calling they're doing for him is putting him in great situations. And the Patriots every year have a good defense. The defensive side of the football is not something that you worried about going into this season. So now that they got the offense clicking, I made a comment last week. I would have loved to seen a guy like Odell Beckham go to their team. They don't need him. The way the offense played yesterday, that offense, the Patriots are looking good, and I'm going to call it now. That's a playoff team, and a playoff team that you need to watch out for.
Okay, your response?
Hey, yeah. Yeah, they surprised me. Everybody, like Mac Jones surprised me. Ramondre Stevenson, I'm actually kind of a fan of his. I was happy to see him have a good game. And yeah, like Pete said, honestly, I think McDaniels deserves a lot of the credit. Basically, just making Mac Jones' job as easy as possible. Like basically saying, like, bro, this is the play I'm going to call, and as long as you know it and you know what your primary read and secondary read is, like the primary read is probably going to be open. Like, so he's doing a great job with play design and play call and protecting them. Their O-line's been playing very good, running the ball well, pass protecting well. So yeah, so like to what you said, Mac Jones' job looks pretty easy, and a lot of the other quarterbacks, I agree, would probably be able to have similar success because they're not really asking him to, throw the whole team on his back or whatever. But what was even more surprising to me was how bad the Browns played, because they only turned over the ball once. The glaring thing was they were only 1 for 11 on third down. So, yeah. So keeping it with that same theme, I'm for Kevin Stefanski, he won like coach of the year or whatever last year, right? Or he was up for it. I remember they were talking about it. I feel like it's more so on the defensive side. Because their roster, if you took both rosters, to me, the Browns roster is clearly more talented. So yeah, I think they got us figured out more from a X's and O's standpoint than anything. But yeah, going into the year, I like the Browns to make a Super Bowl run. So after what they showed yesterday, maybe not anymore. And the Patriots are definitely trending up. So
I was just going to say, over the years, and I'm not going to be able to give you names of these guys since I can't remember them all. But is it just me, or does it seem like at least 1, 2, or 3 weeks every season with the Patriots, there's some like almost random running back that has to fill in. And when he fills in, he has the most amazing game. I feel like over all the years, it's always like that with the Patriots. A guy comes out of nowhere and bangs out 2 touchdowns and 100 and something yards. And it's like, where was this guy the whole time? The Patriots always have that like little diamond in the rough somewhere where it's like, next man up, you're playing this week. And when he plays, he does amazingly well.
Bill Belichick be like, bring me the running backs.
Yeah. And I honestly, I still think that's all about coaching because, in terms of the play calling at the right time and offensive line technique, because even, bro, I had to watch Brady dominate for however long, right? He didn't always have the highest talented offensive linemen, but they were just able to execute so well. And to me, that's just like coaching technique. Like their tackles, they weren't the best, but they always did their job very well. And to me, that's like of a mental thing. They're like, hey, this is the mental approach you need to take when we're in pass protection, this and that, like use the other guy's leverage against them. Just so smart. That was their whole thing. And it still is right now, is they're just playing so smart. And that's always been the case with the Patriots. I feel like they don't need the most talented guys. Like they just play smarter than everybody else from a play calling perspective, from a individual, each rep beating your matchup perspective. They just outsmart you. And yeah, it seems like, to what you're saying, Pete, they can plug and play like any running backs. And that's why I feel like Bill Belichick never really wants to pay anybody, because he's like, I don't need you. Like, like I just need to call the right play and I know it's going to work. So.
Right. Yeah.
And he does do that a lot. You got to give Bill Belichick his credit out there, man. He is a very good coach.
Mistake-free football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the game.
Yeah.
Did we touch on Buffalo Jets?
No.
All right. I feel we did.
No.
GK would have preferred us not to, but
yeah.
No.
No, I'm about to say, because I'm like, I know we talked about it before, like pre-show. I'm like, did we touch on it? All right, GK, what's up with the Jets? You was at the game.
Yeah, so I don't know. One thing led to another. Coming out, we got the ball first and 3 and out, right? So immediately, you already gave their defense confidence. You hand the ball to Josh Allen with good field position. And then something that was a question that's rising for me is like Salah's base defense is his own, right? 4-3. He runs a 4-3, and then they play like a lot of cover 3. I feel like at this stage of the game, since all the players are still learning it, they should run a little bit more man-to-man, especially if it's a tie game or if you're behind, right? Because zone is best when you have the lead, right? So right now, like, we don't have the lead and we can't go blow for blow, like with the likes of a Josh Allen offense. So I would have liked to see a little bit more man. That way, like, all right, if they beat us on explosive, fine. But otherwise, you're in zone and, you're letting them get 7 yards a play every play. And that, I mean, I understand the philosophy, like keep them underneath you, let them catch it, let them run it, whatever, make the tackle. As long as you make the tackle, once they get down to the red zone, hold them to field goals. Like that's the whole philosophy of their whole defense. And then hopefully you get the lead and then you can rush 4 or 5, you get home with 4 or 5, and then you force them into mistakes, which being in zone is good because your eyes are on the quarterback, causes interceptions, right? So that's sort of the whole philosophy that they're trying to install. But I get it, but I just feel like the sort of evolution or adjustment you need to make based on the circumstances of having such a young team, they don't really know what they're doing. The offense is struggling, this and that. I feel like given that, they need to just play a little bit more man, until they all develop and they get to the point where, all right, we can come out and have that zone be our base throughout the whole entire game. But yeah, the Bills have been at it for, this is probably their third or fourth year in the system, all those players, right? So they're just a well-oiled machine. Like the Bills run the same defense that the Jets run. They pretty much run the same scheme on defense, but you could see what 3 to 4 years under the belt versus first year, right? How much better the Bills are at it. Like I always been saying is like, I'm really looking at the third year mark from now to really gauge like, all right, is this going to work out or not? But yeah, we'll see if the Jets can bounce back next week against Miami.
Your thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, the Jets just got outplayed. We know Buffalo's a better team. Buffalo's picked to do very, very, very well this season. The Jets, rookie quarterback, rookie head coach. There's a number of things that you can say go into this game, including if you thought you weren't getting Buffalo's best effort after what happened to them last week, you're crazy.
So come back.
Another situation of the right team came around for Buffalo to have to play after what happened to Buffalo last week. It could have been flipped. Okay, Buffalo could have played the Jets last week. The Jets could have got an upset on Buffalo, and Buffalo would have came in here this week and destroyed the Jaguars. So it just so happened they took the Jags a little lightly last week, but best believe a few people got cursed out, screamed at. They went extra hard in practice this week, and it was, we're going to run up this score as high as we can on the Jets and let everybody know that we had a bad week and we're back to our winning ways.
I mean, 45-17. I just want to point out some. So one interception from the Jets in the first half. Woo! Come out in the second half. The Bills go touchdown, Jets interceptions. Bills touchdown, Jets interception. Bills touchdown, Jets interception.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so going into halftime, we actually looked like we were about to score, right? I was thinking 17-10 or 17-6 at worst. And then Corey Davis caught a pass over the middle. He's running, trying to grab a couple extra yards. And, as he's being brought down, he loses the ball. The guy had his arm hooked on the ball. And
Ripped it out.
Basically as Davis fell down, the ball came out. So then they went into the half 17-3, had to kick it off back to the Bills. So, you go from almost scoring to instead it's a turnover. Then you got to give them the ball. And then they score on that opening drive in the second half. And then it was all downhill from there. So after they scored the opening drive in the second half, Mike White gets the ball, I believe, first play. And they're like, I understand. He's like, all right, I'm going to go deep because, we got to try to get back in the game with a big play. So goes deep. It's underthrown. The safety read it. He undercut it. Interception. And then at that point, it was, there was no coming back from that at that point. And it's funny because I believe it was either Gabriel Davis. I'm pretty sure it was Davis. Same situation, same play, same route. And it was successful because as soon as he got that, I said to my buddy, I was like, that was the same exact play that Mike White just tried to throw the possession before or whatever. And it got picked. So yeah, man, the Bills at this point they're ready. They're ready to go on their run. And the Jets are the total opposite. So.
All right, moving on to I don't know what you call this game. Tie game out in Tyville with the Lions and the Steelers. What happened? What's going on, Pete? What happened out there, Pete?
Oh gosh. I remember over the years in the past, and it didn't really have anything necessarily to do with tie games, but I feel like some of our sloppier football games are always played in Pittsburgh. I don't know what it is. It's the weather. I remember some years back, it was either like a Sunday night or a Monday night game, and you had both head coaches on the field contemplating whether or not the game should even be played because of the field conditions. You know, it's just something about Pittsburgh where like these sloppy turnover games happen. And when it's that sloppy and it's that many turnovers, nobody wants to win the game. It's like, here, I'm giving it to you. It's you can win it. I don't mind. No, wait, you're giving it back to me. Now you want me to win the game. It just was terrible. I do understand Mason Rudolph was that quarterback. It wasn't, Ben Roethlisberger. But at the same time, it's not like Ben Roethlisberger is the Ben Roethlisberger of old, and it's not like Ben Roethlisberger's been playing all this great football this season. Yes, he knows the offensive better, and I'm not like this huge Mason Rudolph fan or anything like that, but I feel like when you're going against a team that has no wins, you're playing at home, get the win. Even if it takes you overtime to get the win, but fumbling the ball left and right on both sides, it's just like, and then I go back and Detroit had a chance to win. And at this point, I'm rooting for Detroit to win at this point. Okay. And the field goal kicker has that, I'm not going to call it a chip shot, but it wasn't a 50-yarder. He wasn't even close on the field goal, and that would have won the game right there in overtime. So with that being said, I mean, I'm not even a fan of these overtime rules at all. I think we touched on that a little earlier. We were talking rule changes are always constantly being put into play with all sports when the new season starts up. But for whatever reason, this is a rule change that has not been changed yet. And it seems like every time we have that one or two tie games in a season, there's always a player on one team that says he didn't know that the game could end in a tie. And I don't know how you don't know that. But yeah, games can end in a tie and it's not fun. I'll be honest with you. I get it. It probably helps in your standings if it came down to the difference of winning, having one more win or having one more loss or making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. But I'm sorry, just give me the loss. I don't even want to be part of a tie.
So GK, touch on the Lions at 0-8-1. Like,
how many more games are they going to not win that has to do with some type of kick, whether it's the other team or them? Bro, the dude missed the extra point. Like, if he makes the extra point in regulation, the Steelers can't kick the field goal and they're going to have to try to get the touchdown. Like, they could have won then. And they, like Pete said, they could have won again in overtime. Like, I just feel for them. Because they went into Pittsburgh, huge underdogs, obviously, right? And they went blow for blow. They stayed toe-to-toe. It was a sloppy game, yeah, but it was touchdown Steelers, touchdown Lions, field goal Steelers, field goal Lions. So, they were in it. And just to, keep that zero in that in the win column, still be zero, that's just tough for them, man. I just feel bad for them, and I really hope that they get a win.
Do they get a win this year? That's the question.
The likelihood they go 0-16, I feel like, is so low. But looking at their schedule, I mean, it doesn't even matter their schedule because
Browns,
even
Bears, Vikings, Broncos, Cardinals, Falcons, Seahawks, and Packers.
Yeah, I mean, but even regardless of their strength of schedule, like, there was a lot of good teams. Like the Vikings lost by 2.
They could beat the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, they could beat any of these teams, honestly, because
they could definitely beat the Browns.
They played like most of their games. Well, maybe not most, but so many of their games they played close, regardless of like how good their opponent was. So
we got to check.
I just think out of these, how many are left? 8. I think they can win 1 out of 8 somehow, some way. Like at some point, they're gonna have a mistake-free game, but also be lucky.
Right.
They're
like,
lucky.
I don't know if they can go 8 games in a row without having that.
Right. You can't be unlucky every single.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, are you going to miss a kick to lose 8 more times? Like,
yeah, luck is supposed to be 50-50. Okay. Not always on the wrong side of it. So yeah, that's
so what do you think a team feels if they lose to the Lions? What is the locker room like? You lose to the Lions.
I got an answer for you. Go ask the Steelers, because as far as I'm concerned, they lost that game. Because that's more of a win for Detroit than it is for the Steelers. Okay, that's an L in the book for the Steelers. Anyway, especially with a coach like Mike Tomlin, 100%.
I feel like the Steelers always tie with somebody. Why do I feel that way? This is not the first time the Steelers had a tie on their record in the last 5 years.
Listen, actually, what I said before too, like there's positives to take out of this for Detroit. Like GK mentioned, we can't even at this point even say like, okay, who's left in the schedule that they can beat? You know what? As far as I'm concerned, whoever's left on their schedule doesn't matter. You could put the 5 best teams in the NFL on their schedule. They play teams really hard and really tough. The ball's just not bouncing in the right way at the right time for them. Don't get me wrong. Would it help to have at least one good wide receiver over there? Would it help if Jared Goff played a lot better? Would
Jared
it help?
Goff is a bad quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, but they're scrappy, man. And like a head coach like that in his first year, I hope he's not on a hot seat at all, because he 100% in my eyes, he deserves another season or two to get this right, because his team plays for him. That's one thing you can't say. The Detroit Lions are playing for their head coach. So if that's what's taking place, let him try to get it right with them in another season or two and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Their head coach isn't really, I mean, I would like to say swap in any other head coach and show me a better result, because maybe, but I feel like he's getting basically the most he can get out of what he has to work with.
Yes.
Practically nothing. So.
All right. Pittsburgh, Detroit, one in the same. Let's get to this upset in Tampa Bay versus the Washington no-name football team.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, GK? What's going on with Brady throwing 2 interceptions in the first quarter?
I don't know, but what my thing was, I was talking to my boy before the game, right? And we were both like, all right, there's at least 2 upsets or more every week. Like, who do you think they're going to be? And he said, he was like, Washington. And I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised, because they're at home and they still remember that playoff game, which they were pretty competitive in that game. So yeah, man, I had them to cover the 9.5 points. I thought it would be close, but I thought the Bucs were going to win at the end of the day. So that did surprise me. But the formula to beat Brady is
same formula it's always been.
Yeah, same formula it's always been. Rush 4. If you can rush 4 and get penetration with just a 4-man rush, then Brady struggles. If you can drop 7 men in coverage and you don't have to blitz anybody, and that's what the football team does. They rush 4 and they got a good D line. Unfortunately, they lost Chase Young, right? He got 20 still. But yeah, so it just happened to work. And like we were talking about in the last game, luck, Brady had a bad game, Washington had a good game, and that was a wrap.
Pete?
Yeah, they knew how well they played them last year in the playoffs. I mean, I get it. It was a year ago, and there might be a couple different players here and there that weren't there that are there now, or vice versa. But they know how they played them in the playoffs last season with the exact same quarterback. As a matter of fact, Washington gave Tampa Bay their best test out of every other playoff game, including the Super Bowl against Kansas City. Washington played them the best. So Washington knows that. Washington knows they're not having a great season. They know they're a long shot to win the playoffs, make it to the playoffs. And they kind of did what they did then, but did even better because they came out with the win. So I thought the one thing that was like so impressive to me is there was still a part of me that thought if you gave Brady time at the end of the game, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it may be, I still felt like Tampa Bay was going to come back and win that game. But when I stopped thinking that was when I seen how many 3rd down conversions and amazing throws Taylor Heineke was making to keep these drives going so that they didn't have to punt or kick a field goal earlier and then leave time for Tampa Bay. I mean, he was making some unbelievable throws. He made a real nice one to McLaurin. He made another real nice one to Humphreys, and these all kept the drive going, and was eating up clock. And how often do we see in a game where Tampa Bay is the one that's forced to use timeouts just to stop the clock to hope they got the ball back? So, well played by Washington, man. They did their thing yesterday.
Yeah, Tim Heineke went 26 of 32, 256 yards, 1 touchdown. Not a bad performance. Brady 23 for 34, 220, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
going into the year, I was a big fan of Washington. Actually, because I'm a big Ryan Fitzpatrick fan, so I was really hoping they would go on a Super Bowl run. Their defense has been just such a disappointment this year. I
early.
like going into the year. I'm like, yo, they're going to have #1 defense, and Fitzpatrick's finally going to be in a situation there's nothing like he's got a good O-line, good defense. Like they could easily make a Super Bowl run. Like, why not? Why not? And then he went down and Heineke went in, and I was like, yo, all right. I'm a big Heineke fan after what he showed me in that playoff game last year. I was like, yo, I like this guy. Like, he's tucking the ball and running when he needs to. And, I remember that touchdown he dove for the pylon. I was like, yo, he's really hungry. Like he wants this. So I've always rooted for him. And yeah, it's been a disappointing season for Washington, but there's still plenty of time for them to get it together. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Tampa Bay better
Oh,
get it together.
one more thing I forgot. In Brady's defense, and I'm not in the business of defending Brady, but in his defense, no Gronk and no Antonio Brown. And I feel like having both of them on the field with him does make a pretty big difference, because I feel like when they are on the field, he favors, looking their way. So
Yeah, people forget that because they've still been playing well without them. But best believe they still got two major weapons that they have not been able to utilize.
Yep, 100%. All right, Arizona versus the Panthers. Cam Newton's return. Let's get into it. We're gonna start off with Pete. Pete, what's up with Cam Newton coming out? Like it's nothing. Like he never left.
Yeah, I mean, he was. The man was gonna be fired up. That goes without saying. I like the way they utilized him. I like the fact that they still didn't take the ball out of PJ Walker's hands and still I think PJ Walker still had like 25 pass attempts or something along that range.
22 for 29.
Yeah. So he still threw the ball 30 times. You know what I mean? So, he still got used. He still got to play. But hey, listen, almost like a Taysom Hill type of thing. When they got near that goal line, it was time to give the ball to Cam Newton, not keep it in PJ Walker's hands, not keep it in Christian McCaffrey's hands. Let him get in that end zone. And I know that had to feel good for Cam Newton. Did I agree with the signing specifically? No. But after watching the game yesterday and the way they utilized Cam Newton, okay, it looked good. It looked pretty good. It was an improvement from what we've been seeing from Sam Darnold. And as long as it's an improvement from that, what can we complain about?
I got one question for you, Pete, before we kick it to GK.
Is
Sam Darnold better than Danny Dimes? Who are you taking, Sammy or Danny?
Come on now. Come on.
Danny?
Of course. I'm a Giants fan, but I'm not biased. But I like the growth of Danny Dimes. At the same time, I don't think that the Giants' issues this season have really been about him.
Yeah.
It has been. Danny Dimes turned the ball over way too much. He's not turning the ball over like he has been in the past. I think the Giants need a little help on the offensive line and different things. They need their wide receivers to all be healthy because they're not. And that's what his major issue is. Sam Darnold was in the league longer than Danny Dimes had been. So Sam Darnold had more time to prove himself and work on his game. Yes, he didn't have a good team with the Jets helping him do that. He looked great when he came into Charlotte and was with them. But I mean, once he lost Christian McCaffrey, all of a sudden he became the Jets Sam Darnold. So, Carolina, yeah, no, I'll stick with Daniel Jones.
GK? Carolina versus Arizona. What happened in Arizona? What happened in Arizona?
No Kyler.
Kyler.
Arizona, Colt McCoy, 11 for 20. Yeah, I didn't think that.
Why does he still have a job?
Who?
Who's Colt McCoy? He's a solid back. I mean, a lot of these guys nowadays, or teams nowadays, they want to back up that knows and can manage the game. Almost like with the Patriots, they got Brian Hoyer. What is Brian Hoyer doing these days?
11 and 20 is managing the game.
But you got to remember, like, he got the dub last week, So it's not like he's a bum. He had a bad game,
That's true. I'll let him slide. I'm not gonna go hard on him.
Let me say one thing about Colt McCoy, right? It seems like every year, no matter what team he's on, He gets his one win when it's time for him to play. He did it with the Giants and he did it with the Washington team, okay? Over the last few seasons with him bouncing back as far as a backup quarterback for those teams. If I remember correctly, last year with the Giants, I think he pulled out a win against the Seahawks, if I remember correctly. And then I remember a couple seasons ago when he was with Washington, he actually took over that starting job until he got hurt because the guy that was playing got hurt before him. So Cole still manages to pull out a win here and there just based on probably his intelligence of the game. Okay, the talent isn't there anymore. The speed isn't there. The arm strength and the age is there. But the mind is still working good. And the guy knows how to run a football team when he's asked to do so. But he looked terrible yesterday.
Yeah,
so
GK.
another thing I wanted to bring up was just even though Arizona has so many wins, in a lot of their games the past few weeks, they haven't looked the best.
That's true.
And in my opinion, with winter coming,
Cool.
they're not really built to be playing cold weather ball. They're in the shotgun a lot. They're throwing it a lot. And then defensively, I can't really say that they're built to stop the run. They're built to like play with the lead and get after the passer. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're like a first round exit or if they end up really just struggling towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, do you think they take a dive the rest of this year?
I feel like they'll never be on fire the way they were to start this season.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think that's fair to say. Anything to add, Pete, before we move on to Minnesota?
Wait, I got confused for a second. When you asked that question, talking about who?
You broke up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I got confused for a second. When you asked GK that question, you were talking about Carolina or Arizona?
I was talking about Arizona, I think. Yeah, Arizona.
Oh, okay. When we jumped real quick, so I got confused.
Yeah, no, because I went to your point about Carolina and then I switched to Arizona with you.
Okay. Listen. You know, first of all, I feel like Kyler Murray probably could have played. But when your record is as good as it is, and Colt McCoy played as good as he did the week before, even if you take a loss in this game, which they did, it's not really affecting much for them. They're going to be a playoff team. They're going to win their division. What would help them would definitely to be able to have a home game throughout the playoffs, like GK mentioned, cold weather and things like that. With Arizona playing in the indoor stadium and different things like that, that's always a plus. But one thing I'll say about that is people always talk about, oh, you get to play in that indoor stadium. Well, guess what? There's another team that gets to play in it, the team you're playing against. So it's possible that the right team can come into their building and beat them, but Kyler Murray's got to be healthy. DeAndre Hopkins has to be healthy. And I'll be honest, with the really, really amazing season that they're having, they better not be a first round exit. That you can throw this whole season in the garbage if you're a first round exit. I'm not saying you got to win the Super Bowl, even though I'm sure that's their goal and aspiration, and they feel they're good enough to do. But please, whatever you do, I won't be mad at you if you don't make it to the Super Bowl, but don't be a first round exit.
Yeah, I agree. They're playing too well to be a first round exit. So starting with GK, Minnesota, Chicago. What's going on over there? Yeah, I mean, not Chicago. I said Chicago, Minnesota, and the Chargers.
Yeah. So I loved the Vikings to win this game.
Yeah, I had them to win too. So I thought the Chargers, I just seen the Chargers, kind of going down. And I'm like, all right, Minnesota is kind of that team that middle season, end of the season, they pull out some wins.
Well, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, it's the Chargers offensive coordinator. It's their first year with them, right?
I believe so.
So they're still figuring it out. And I don't know why the Chargers have been struggling lately and they haven't been throwing the ball to Mike Williams. So in my opinion, they need to get back to that, because that's when they were winning and that's when Herbert was, shining. And then in terms of the Vikings, it's the complete opposite. They're a team that's been together for a few years now with the same coach, and they know exactly what kind of football they want to play, what they need to do, what kind of defense they want to play, all that. So it doesn't surprise me at all. People sleep on Cousins because he's had a lot of primetime games that were disappointing.
You like that?
But yeah, I mean, Cook had a good day, 94 yards rushing. Cousins threw for almost 300 yards. Jefferson went off. Yeah, I like the Vikings, man. I think if they can just string together a couple wins in a row, that they can maybe weasel their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, they're 5-4 right now. Still a lot of football to be played throughout the season. What happened to the Chargers, Pete? What's going on with the Chargers?
Yeah, I give y'all credit because last week y'all were big on Minnesota. Y'all said from the gate you knew Minnesota was going to win this game, and you guys were absolutely right about that. They're definitely well coached. It's just funny, man. I say this all the time. Who would ever thought that Kirk Cousins is still playing and RG3 is out the league?
Right?
It's just, if you go back however many years ago that was, and RG3 was the big number two draft pick behind Andrew Luck. Cousins, I don't even remember what round he got drafted in, but he got drafted as the backup to RG3. And now we fast forward however many years later, and Cousins is playing meaningful football on a good team. As a matter of fact, signed a really nice contract with Minnesota to even be there. Mm-hmm. And RG is, I think, college football right now.
Little side note, I actually watched the trend. It was some type of documentary on him when he was going free agency and teams. He was talking to teams, and he had the episode showed when he got the phone call from his agent that what the Vikings offered him. So it was pretty cool.
And I think he fits well over there too. I mean, he's got some great young wide receivers. He still has Adam Thielen. Yeah, I mean, he lost Stephon Diggs, but these young wide receivers, Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and the running game is great already with Cook. Yeah, they're good, man. Minnesota can definitely surprise a team if they sneak in the playoffs.
Let me ask a question. I'm gonna kick it to GK. Who's better? You taking Justin or you taking Burrow?
What do you mean?
What quarterback you taking? Who you want to start a franchise with? I'll rephrase.
Burrow or who?
Herbert.
Burrow or Herbert? Oh man. The only thing that scares me with Burrow is his durability. Otherwise, I'm going Burrow, but it's so close. And the only reason I would go Burrow is just because of his personality. I just think he's more of a, I can see when he's turning up the intensity and he knows he needs to basically go Super Saiyan mode, Mm-hmm. I feel like he has that in him. And Herbert, maybe not so much. Herbert's a little bit laid back, but he is very talented. He's bigger than Burrow, which is good. And, he's got a monster arm. So it's very close, but I would prefer Burrow if I'm starting a team.
Same question to you, Pete.
That's tough. I feel like both are on very, very small samples right now. Herbert 2 years in, what's Burrow? 3 years in. And then on top of that, Burrow had the big injury last season. Mm-hmm. I think it's still a little early to tell. I'll be honest with you, based on how well Herbert played last season, I would have been saying Herbert. But the way Burrow has bounced back from the ACL injury last season, I didn't see him playing that well his first season back after the ACL. And I get it. The Bengals have not looked great over the last couple of weeks, but Burrow's still been playing some good ball. I even seen a couple games ago where Burrow's diving forward, taking big hits. He left the game real quick because they thought maybe possible concussion. He's not even out there caring one bit in the world about that ACL or anything that happened to him. Matter of fact, you could say he's playing way better than he played before the ACL injury. So I think both are definitely super studs in this league for years to come, especially with some of the older quarterbacks that are going to start fading away, with your Brady and your Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers, who knows how many more years he still has left and stuff. When you go 5 years down the road and all those big names that we've been watching for so long are no longer around anymore, those are two guys you're going to be talking about.
I agree. So let's move on to the Philadelphia-Denver game. GK, what's going on? 30-13.
Yeah. So for me, Jalen Hurts had one of his best games. He threw an interception, and he didn't have a ton of yards passing, but I saw him throw a lot of accurate passes, make a lot of really good decisions, run when he needed to run. The Eagles have a really good offensive line and defensive line. And the Broncos have been struggling in the trenches. So I thought the game would be a little bit closer, but it doesn't surprise me that the Eagles won. And then for Eagles fans, I would say they should be optimistic about Jalen Hurts after his performance yesterday. And then the other thing was, Bridgewater has been pretty efficient, mostly in the beginning of the season, obviously, but it surprised me that they were 1 for 12 or 1 for 11 on third down. Like they just couldn't move the chains on third down. And that's ultimately, the reason why they lost the game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Philly, I feel like just needs to be a little bit more consistent. Right. I feel like they win, they lose, they win, they lose. You look good, you look bad. But yesterday, I think Denver, and that's their fault, but I feel like Denver was off this high off of beating Dallas the way they beat Dallas in Dallas last week. And if you thought just because Philly is from the NFC East as well, you were going to come here and do that too, or you're flying high because of what you did to Dallas, well, you got a rude awakening because Philly put it on you. Philly put it on you the same way you put it on Dallas the week before. So back to the drawing board for Denver as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Philly is up and down. They are in our conference, but not in our conference. They're in our conference, right?
NFC East, yeah.
Yeah. We have some good games against them as Giants fan, especially the debacle at the end of the game a couple of years ago. But yeah, the Eagles are always up and down. It's like they have a good team, but they struggle. Carson Wentz was good for them for a while, and then that thing went awry, and now they're trying to figure it out with Jalen Hurts. I haven't, like you said in the previous segment, I haven't seen enough from Jalen Hurts to really judge him. Teddy Bridgewater is Teddy Bridgewater. We have seen a big enough sample size of Teddy to know what Teddy is good at and what Teddy isn't good at. But yeah, I think the Broncos going to be like this for a while, man. I think after Peyton left and the things they went to get Peyton kind of screwed them up afterwards. Von Miller, all the big pieces that was out there are not out there no more. So it's like a rebuilding phase for the Broncos. But let's get to the Seattle and Green Bay game, which is going to take us a little bit down to topic 4 and on the docket. Is how did Russell and Aaron Rodgers play? Starting with Pete. How did Aaron Rodgers and Russell play, man? Let's talk about this game.
Well, they didn't play good. When it comes down to it, I think they both had good excuses. Russell obviously being out the amount of weeks he's been with the finger. And who knows, Aaron Rodgers, I get it, he only missed 1 week, but I've never had COVID before. So a week after having COVID, I don't know what his body possibly could have been feeling or what he might have been going through that could have been a carryover into this game. Also, on top of that, too, I'm sure the guy had a lot of emotions and things going on. This has been a wild week for him. He's been in the news constantly, mostly bad things being said about the guy. And now you got to go on television and perform in front of a packed house and millions of fans watching all over television. So none of us have had that type of pressure put on us before. And I feel like he did enough to get his team to win. I know Aaron Rodgers is way better than that. As far as Seattle is concerned, I think this is a lost season. Putting up 0 points is kind of inexcusable. I get it, Russell being out as long as he's been out for, but you got to put up a couple points. But Green Bay at the same time does play very, very good defense. But it was just and that's another game I would call somewhat sloppy. The score was like 3-0 for the longest time, right? Just two good teams. Russell Wilson's still a great quarterback and everything like that. But is his time up in Philly? Is it time? I'm sorry, not Philly. Is his time up in Seattle? Is it possibly time for him to go somewhere else? Is it time for Pete Carroll to move on? There's a lot of things going on over there. The wide receiver who not Lockett, the other wide receiver for Seattle.
DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf. He is not the DK Metcalf that he was last season. DK Metcalf was all over the highlights last season, chasing people down from behind off of interceptions and doing all this crazy stuff. And DK Metcalf is just having an okay season this year.
But do you think, let me ask a question. Do you think Metcalf's season could maybe be contribute to him not being happy out there in Seattle?
Well, why isn't he happy?
He don't look happy to me. GK, let's kick it to GK. Do you think DK Metcalf, the way this season is going, and like even like to touching Pete, like the little, I keep saying little, it wasn't going any further. The little like instances of him like wilding on the sideline or getting into like, you know, stuff on the field, getting ejected from games, like that kind of stuff doesn't show me that you're playing for your team or you want to be there for the team. Because if you want to be there for your team, you stay in the game and you help your team in the best way you can win the game. You understand what I'm saying? All his antics, because if we go back a couple of years ago, if OBJ was doing this, it would be top news.
Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts on this actually. If I'm the coach, I'm definitely saying all the things you just said. You know, you're costing your team in that. But at the same time, my personal preference is like, I don't mind you being that emotional or seeing that, because it shows me that you care, and it shows me that, you know, your intensity and your tenacity is going to be infectious for the rest of the guys. So I feel like, yeah, you go through instances where he's getting ejected and that's bad for the team and stuff like that. But what comes with that is the other side, when it's in a positive light and when things are going well, and, you know, the effect that has on the other end of the spectrum, I'll take that all day. And the other thing is in terms of his production and stuff, I think a lot of it is situational, because yeah, he's physically a beast and stuff like that, but he wasn't the best route runner. And a lot of people don't know this, but as soon as he got drafted, Russ called him and was like, come get with me. And they worked out privately, one-on-one with each other, like all off season long, to develop a chemistry. So I don't know that every single quarterback's going to do that and make it a point of emphasis to like, be like, yo, you're going to be the guy. We need to put in this extra time, you know, privately, just me and you, and develop this relationship or whatever. Right. So with that, and in terms of Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, I think Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson have as long of a leash as they want, basically, because they brought the Seattle fans a Super Bowl. Russ is going into the Hall of Fame. Pete Carroll is probably going to make the Hall of Fame. Pete Carroll, I think, only had one losing season since he arrived to Seattle, and that was before Russell Wilson, if I'm not mistaken. So I think Seattle is going to just let them ride it out for as long as they have in them. And I think they can stay optimistic in the future. You know, obviously this year is probably a lost cause, but next year, the year after, they still have a pretty big window, in my opinion, of being a competitive football team. And I don't think DK is going to want to leave Russell Wilson. So, you know, yesterday it was snowing, I believe, right? It was freezing. It was snowing. Russ needed to shake off the rust. Yeah, I don't know. I give Russell Wilson and the Seahawks a pass on this one, because it would have really surprised me if they won. So,
I mean, I kind of knew Green Bay was going to win. I think we all picked Green Bay to win that game, especially with the time that Wilson had off, like Pete alluded to. But it's just like, it pains me to see Metcalf in that scuffle that he had, like going around just, he was going, whoever came close to him was getting. And it's just like, that's not called for. You need to keep your head in the game. Like, you need to help your quarterback that's been gone a couple of weeks come back and be able to help his team, you know, get a win. You know, and I don't feel like DK Metcalf did that yesterday. Maybe, you know.
Try to sneak back into the game. Did you see that?
I saw that too. Yeah, I saw that too. He was like, that's that I got ejected, but I didn't really get ejected because you didn't put me out. You didn't put me out. So
maybe if he wasn't as big as he was, he could have pulled it off.
Nah, the number 14, they would have given it away as soon as he lined up.
Everybody else.
Nah, number 14 would have gave it up. I don't know what he was thinking. But moving to the last football game, the Rams didn't happen yet. We'll talk about the Rams later on in the episode this week. But Kansas City, Las Vegas. Is Patty Mahomes back, GK?
I guess you could say that. 5 touchdowns, right? He found his groove again. So honestly, I thought the Raiders were going to pull off an upset at home. I thought Derek Carr was going to be able to have his way with that Chiefs defense, but they really stepped it up. So, you know, Mahomes 406 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like, obviously the Chiefs
threw the ball a lot.
They didn't run the ball, so so yeah, 50, you could say the Chiefs found their way.
So before you go, Pete, GK, how well did their defense play in the win?
Well, holding Carr to 261 in the air, 50 on the ground. They surprised me, because they haven't really been playing well all year. And I was definitely expecting the Raiders to get at least like 24 to break 20, So only 2 scores. That really surprised me. So if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm feeling a little bit better about it. Like this game showed me, all right, we still can, make a playoff run here despite
They're 6-4, so they're not out of it.
Yeah.
They
So go ahead, Pete.
I say they lead the division right now after that win.
Yeah, they're turning it around. So Pete, talk to us about the Raiders. What's going on with the Raiders? What's going on with this 14 points against a struggling defense like GK alluded to? Everybody has their way on the Chiefs defense except for the Giants, because
Yeah, I mean, at first they came back and scored another touchdown. I think that made the game 14-17. And then after that, it was over. The Chiefs just went into a completely different mode, was airing it out. Their running back Williams had a huge game. I mean, I think he had 10 catches for 101 yards, 100-something yards, and that's from your running back. So, yeah, they couldn't do much at all to stop them. Vegas was just lost at one point. I mean, like you said, teams have been feasting on the Chiefs defense because they know that's their weak spot. And when you got the guy Sorensen, who's probably their worst D-back and one of the worst D-backs in the league, and he's getting interceptions against you, tonight is not going to be your night. I saw a lot of balls that Derek Carr threw up there that were just like for anybody to catch. I felt like it was at one point in time, he was just trying to take the team on his back and just make miracles happen that weren't happening. Yeah, they got a lot of problems over there. This has been a very, very rough, trying season for Vegas with all the outside things taking place and all the drama going on in the locker room, losing your head coach through the first few games of the season. Yeah, this is not a playoff team. They lost to the Giants last week. They lost this week. Yeah, they got some major issues going over there in Vegas right now.
Yeah,
their offensive line is really bad, and their interior defensive line is not good either. So it doesn't bode well for them.
I mean, Raiders, they've been the same team for the last couple of years, man. They start good sometimes, but they just always window down and show you the true colors. They're similar to the Cowboys, man. Cowboys do good, and then at the end of the year, it's just like they start doing the Cowboy things and making mistakes and losing games they need to win to put themselves in a better predicament. And the Raiders do that a lot, man. Games that they should win, like this Chiefs game, they should have won there, upset the Chiefs with it, especially with the way the Chiefs defense play. But Chiefs were able to turn it around, get a win last week, get a win this week. And yeah, I think they're trending up. I think they had some kinks to work out in the beginning of the season, being below 500 early. But it's the Chiefs, man. They got Patrick Mahomes. It ain't nothing. It ain't nothing to worry about.
Yeah, Chiefs defense isn't great, but when you have an offense that's that explosive, which I get that they haven't looked explosive over the last few weeks, it's like, come on, how long do you think you can keep Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, and Pat Mahomes bottled up? Not for long.
That's true. So let's get into the Woods. Woods gets injured. He's out with MCL, I think.
ACL.
Yeah, ACL. So what does that mean for Odell? I think this is a perfect fit now. Do we go back on, kind of what we talked about last week? The other day. Now I gotta stop saying last week. The other day.
If you want to talk about the cards falling where they fall and the timing being perfect, it was like, all right, now you got to compete with Woods, and you also got to compete, obviously, with Cooper Kupp. And then Woods goes down the same week that you made that signing. It's perfect for them now. And I'll be honest, I think Odell is a better wide receiver than Woods is. So now you're bringing in Odell. You still got Van Jefferson with his sprinkling a few catches throughout the game as well. I think this now turned into a good fit for Odell. I was against it. I was upset with him signing there. But now that the injury took place, it looks like, wow, it's almost like you could almost say they knew Woods was going to get injured.
I just thought that when you said it. When you started, I was like,
it couldn't have worked out any more perfectly for them. So This is going to be a good game tonight.
GK?
I agree with everything Pete said. Didn't really think it made sense before the injury. Unless there's no way they're thinking like, well, in case one of our receivers gets hurt, that never get hurt, like ever. But yeah, given the circumstances now in both parties for the Rams and for Odell, ideal. And I think Odell can pretty much do all the things that Woods could do. Like they gave it to him on reverses a little bit. Odell can do that. And in my opinion, Odell can do any kind of, like, if you want him to stretch the field, if you want him to do dig routes over the middle, comebacks for like be a possession receiver type role, slot receiver, you want him to go deep on a go route. I think he's got all of that in his bag. So
that reverse the Woods that you just talked about. They love that play. They run that play 3 times a game where he runs around the end around and they just hand it to Woods and he gets a nice little 10 yards out of it. And Odell is good at doing that as well. So that's going to be a role also. He'll take that role over.
He did that back with the Giants.
Yeah.
And wide receiver screens too. Like I'm comfortable with Odell getting behind the O lineman and making reads like off of the screen pass. So yeah, this is almost like, I don't know, like almost like it was meant to happen for Odell, you know, like unfortunately for Woods, but because it, like, let's say there was no Woods to begin with, then you would say like, oh, that's perfect for both parties, right? And now there is no Woods, so yeah, I mean, good for the two of them. Unfortunately, sorry for Robert Woods, but yeah, I like the Rams to win tonight for sure.
I think I see it. I'm not 100% sure. I see some type of weird trick play coming in tonight. I'm talking like something like Odell throwing it deep to Cooper Kupp, or there's gonna be something. I just feel like there's gonna be a real sneaky trick play that San Francisco doesn't see tonight. That's gonna happen with Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham. So I'm gonna keep my eyes open for that.
So moving on through 10 weeks, in, we got one more game tonight. Who would you guys say is the team to beat in the NFL right now?
I think honestly, I think the scariest team, even though they lost to Washington, is the Bucs. Because like we said, they don't have Gronk and Antonio Brown right now. But from what they showed in their playoff run last year, their defense is really good. Their only weakness on defense, maybe their secondary. Their front seven is fire. Like interior line and pass rush, amazing. Linebackers, very good. Only thing that's sus is their secondary, but honestly, the whole rest of the team is so good that they can basically cover that up, right? Then on the other side of the ball, their offensive line, the pass protection is really good. They, like, in my opinion, their run blocking is good. They just don't really run the ball. And then, you know, Brady with all those weapons, once they come back healthy, I just think that's going to be, you know, if I'm another playoff team, that's the team I want to see the least. Like, I'd pretty much rather take my chances against anybody else.
Pete?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of weapons on one offense, man. I mean, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Godwin, like, and throwing Gronkowski. That's a lot of weapons to deal with, man. Like, how do you have a person that's good enough to cover all 4? I mean, you're talking about 3 wide receivers that could be the number 1 on any other team or any offense. You know what I mean? So that's a lot to deal with. And you got to give them the respect of the fact that they got a guy in number 12 in Tom Brady. And you got to give them respect for the fact that they are the Super Bowl champs. As far as I'm concerned, the Super Bowl champs are the Super Bowl champs. Until you dethrone them, they are the team that you have to look out for. Now, are there other teams that could be scary and that deserve mentioning and deserve some respect? Absolutely. You can't go unnoticed the 6-game winning streak that Tennessee's doing. But does Tennessee have the weapons to maintain it and sustain it? I don't know. We're going to see. You know, they're just playing really good. But when you're the Super Bowl champs and you're not having a bad season, you're still having a great season, and you have 2 major pieces in Antonio Brown and Gronkowski that haven't been playing, they're still the team to watch out for. Absolutely.
So real quick to touch on that, when you look around, right, some teams you could say their strength is coaching or scheme or talent or experience or being together for X amount of years. Tampa has all of those. Like Arians has always been a very good coach in terms of offensive production. Bowles has always been a good coach in terms of defensive production. Brady's always been great in terms of efficiency. They have all the talent and all the weapons that you just mentioned, and their defense is full of talent too. So in terms of a recipe for success, they're not really leaving anything out versus other teams like the Titans. They're like maybe a little weak in the talent department. Arizona's a little weak in terms of the experience department. The Rams are a little weak in terms of the chemistry department. So like, but with the Bucks, it's like I can't really say anything that they're missing, other than being healthy right now, but they got plenty of time to get back.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. So we're done with our football. We touched on topic 4, Russell and Aaron Rodgers. We're gonna move on to basketball now and get into some good basketball topics, some stuff that happened over the week. So our first topic is the Warriors beat the Bulls, right? Everybody was saying that the Warriors haven't really beat a good team yet. Bulls are a very good team. Warriors beat the Bulls 93-119. Steph Curry goes off for 40 points. And I think in that same game or in the next game, Curry winds up passing Ray Allen for overall 3-pointers made in his career. Just by a little, by like 12, 9, 8, maybe 8. So I wanted to ask, the question is it too early to say that the Warriors are the team to beat in the NBA? GK?
I would have answered this question very differently had they not shown me that they're about to go 11-2. But the thing is, to stick with sort of the same theme of the recipe for success, like Steph is obviously talented. He's, the best shooter of all time. And with him and Kerr together, they just know, like, this is what we need to do. This is how we want to play. And we know our strengths and, try to beat us doing this. And you could tell that the rest of the supporting cast, the other young guys, they have bought into that and have figured it out. And honestly, I credit a lot of it to Draymond because he's not afraid to get in their face when he needs to and be like, this is the job we need you to do. This is what you're supposed to do on this play, da-da-da-da. And he's not afraid to, express that to them and get the message across. And obviously it's being heard loud and clear because the role players are playing really well too. And that's all that Steph needs really, is he just needs a little bit of support. And then, he can go off for 40, 50, whatever. And, as long as all those things are happening, then yeah, they're a tough team to beat, really tough team to beat.
Pete?
Yeah. It's still early. You have a total of 16 teams that make the playoffs. And now with that play-in bracket thing that they do as well, you got a couple extra teams that get a chance to make it. But as far as, if I was to just put it as far as like, will the Warriors be a top 1, 2, 3, 4 seed? Absolutely. I would sit there and say it. They're not even 100% healthy yet. We don't have Clay back just yet. And they're just balling like, no other right now. The fact that they only got the 1 loss, 2 losses now, I'm sorry, that says a lot as well. Yeah, they're tough, man. Draymond, I'll touch on that. GK, you're 100% right. He is definitely the vocal leader on that team. Draymond does not play around. He don't take no stuff, no laziness, none of that. And when you got a guy like that can get in people's faces, let them know what's up. That helps out a lot to go along with the strong play of Curry. The guy Curry is just really unstoppable. There isn't really a defense that can do anything with a guy that can shoot off balance on any angle from any spot on the floor the way he does. He can release the ball from different weird angles and things. The guy's a walking bucket. He really is. So they're tough, man. They're tough. With the Lakers being as injured and not healthy and LeBron not playing right now and things like that, they're the team to watch right now. 100% are the Warriors. Absolutely.
Anything to add, GK?
Andrew Wiggins has been playing probably the best that he's been playing since he's been to the NBA. And that's super important, being that Clay is out. And then the other thing that I've been noticing is Gary Payton is no longer someone to be slept on, because he's been in the league for a while, I think, or out of college for a while at least anyway. But he looks really good out there defensively and offensively. So yeah, I don't think any of this happens unless those other guys aren't playing well, because last year we saw Steph didn't really have this kind of efficiency from his other guys. And then the other thing that I want to mention is Iguodala being like just his presence in general, him along with Draymond, just to almost be like a player coach for the other guys. So yeah, the Warriors are scary. Will it be tough once it comes playoff time and they have to play 7 games against, Chris Paul, against Kawhi, against yeah. So I'm not saying they're definitely the strongest contender to make it to the championship, but they're definitely to be considered at this point in the season for sure, 100%.
I agree. They are a tough team. I mean, they play well together. They seem like they got some camaraderie out there. And Steph just got to do his thing. Clay comes back, depending on what type of player he is. They are going to be a dangerous team. But talking about dangerous teams right now, out in the East, man, the Wizards is on top of the East, man. The question is, do you think they could keep it that way? But before you answer, Pete, I just want to read you who they played so far, right? Because we hear all this big talk about the Warriors' easy schedule. So their first game, right? They played Toronto, they won. They played the Pacers, they won. They lost to Brooklyn, beat Boston, beat a struggling Atlanta, beat another beat Boston again, then lost to a struggling Atlanta, lost to Toronto, beat the Grizzlies. Okay, they're a tough team, maybe. They beat the Bucks, injured Bucks. They beat the Cavs, young Cavs, up and down Cavs. They beat the Magic, one of the worst teams in the NBA right now. The next game is the Pelicans, and then they have the Hornets. So can the Wizards keep it up? Pete?
I think the Wizards are good enough and have shown enough so far in the early season that they can be a playoff team. Are they going to be a scary playoff team that's going to upset somebody from the 8th seed or the 7th seed, if that's the seed that they end up getting? No, I don't think so. I get it. It depends on who's in that first spot and who's in that second spot that they're playing. And this is no knock on them. They're playing great. They got the new pieces and the Dinwiddies and the Kuzma and all of that stuff. I get all that. Montrezl Harrell. I get all of that. And they're doing great, but I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to stay on top, because I know they're not going to stay on top. The league is too strong. The league is too talented, where there's just a lot of veterans and other guys that are a little bit better, more established, have better pieces around them, where the Wizards will start to fall down a little bit to, I don't want to say reality, because if I say reality, that means that they're falling completely down. No, they're not going to fall completely down, but they're going to be right in the middle of the pack, maybe like 7th, 6th seed, somewhere around there, I see. And that's nothing wrong with that. That means you had a great season, and that means that these young pieces that you brought over are working. But right now, the league is just a little too talented. They've had a nice schedule. They caught people off guard. They're playing really good. And just keep it up and do the best that you can, kind of deal. But I think some reality is going to set in eventually when they start playing your Brooklyn Nets and Philly figures it out a little bit more. Milwaukee gets a little bit healthier, and Middleton comes back and things like that. Because the East is stacked. And even combining the East with the West is stacked. Just because they're in the East, they're still going to have to play some West teams throughout the season that are probably better than they are. So I'm still rooting for the Wizards. I have nothing against them. I'm a big fan of, let's see new teams in the playoffs. Let's see new faces on television. Let's see new teams on television now in primetime games on ESPN and TNT and things like that. Because let's be honest, the superstars and the teams that are playing well and the most popular teams are the teams that you see on TNT and ESPN. Those are the teams that get to play. And it's nice when you don't see the same teams all the time. We don't live in that Washington market where we get to see Wizards games. And if the Wizards are number 1 in the East and they're playing that good of ball, let's put them on television so the world can get to see how good they actually are right now.
GK?
So when it comes to winning, and specifically winning a championship, there are times when you need more than just talent, but a majority of the time, if you have more talent and more star power, you're going to win, especially in a 7-game sample size. So my take with the Wizards is I think they'll continue to have a strong season. But there's going to be a point in the playoffs where they're just outmatched in terms of a matchup, in either individual matchup or just amount of overall star power, right? Because right now, Dinwiddie and Montrezl Harrell are giving them a lot. They're a big part of their success, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Harrell, look, let me see. Harrell's giving you 18 points and 9 rebounds and a block a game. So, is that sustainable when it comes to when he's getting matched up against, maybe top 5 other centers or top 5 other bigs, like, or Dinwiddie, like, how is he going to match up once it comes playoff time and he's, against the likes of Chris Paul, Steph, or, whoever, the top tier point guards, So we'll see, I guess. I am glad, like you guys were saying, new faces on TV. Yeah, like let me see them. Let me see them in the playoffs. But I just think, we could see one of those things where, like the old Hawks teams where they just crush the regular season and then they just can't get over the hump in the playoffs because they're just outmatched. So that's kind of how I feel like it's going to go.
Yeah, don't be surprised if, like, in 2 weeks, there's a 3 or a 4-game losing streak, and we're kind of starting to sound a little different about the Wizards. It's a long season.
Agreed. You guys can see where I got them on the brackets when we get to the tiers. But moving into 2 teams that's not doing too well this year. One of them being a big surprise that's in like 13th place right now. It's the Atlanta Hawks. Man, is it too early to write the Atlanta Hawks off, GK?
Yes.
Why is that?
There's still plenty of time for them to get their confidence, and them being so young, like and they're not playing bad enough to where like, they're not going to win games. Like they're going to win games. They're going to win games because they have the talent, and they went on their little run last year. So I just think over the course of the season, at some point they figure it out. And honestly, I think it could be a good thing that they're struggling now, because then as long as they work through these growing pains during the middle of the season, then hopefully they have momentum going through the end of the season. So I'm not going to push the panic button on the Hawks. I do think they will move up to top 8. Like we're at going into game 15-ish of 82, right? So
yeah, they played 14.
Yeah. So give me another 15 games, and I think they'll be closer to 500.
Pete?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, didn't the Hawks, did I see that correctly? Yeah, so just yesterday the Hawks won 120-100 over the Bucks. Trae Young dropped 42 points. Yeah, it's too early to write them off. Absolutely. That was a great bounce back game for them. Yeah, the Hawks are, like we talked about just the other day in our last episode, you can't have the season that you had last year and then completely fall off this year. I get it. It can happen, but the Hawks are too young and too talented for that to happen. Everybody got paid. Everybody's happy over there. The new head coach, the same players for the most part coming back from next season. It's okay to get off to a slow start. You got a lot of games being played. You can figure it out. Game 10, game 11, game 12, game 13. That's all right. And I think that's what they're doing right now. Now, with that being said, don't beat the Bucks last night 120-100 and then go and put out a terrible game in your next game. Feed off of that and get yourself a little streak going, a little momentum going, and see how you do. I mean, I know they love playing at home. They love playing in that building. The fans are crazy in Atlanta for them. They're very comfortable playing over there. when that in those home games, I'm not worried about them. It's when they go on the road. So let's see how they do. They got a nice win against the Bucks just last night. Keep the momentum going, one game at a time.
Agreed. I'm not writing them off yet, but it is surprising to me that they are down so low. The Bucks too, just to elaborate a little, they are dealing with injuries, so you would expect a healthy healthy Hawks team to go in there and beat a depleted Bucks team. But it is a good win for them. Like you said, Pete, it should build their confidence to go into the next one and get a win. But let's talk about great segment, Justin. Let's talk about the confidence of another team that's without their all-stars, but particularly one all-star that's actually playing in the 76ers. They're without Embiid the last 4 games, and they have lost all 4 games. Pete, what is your thoughts on that?
Not surprising, because you don't have Giannis, who's he's won multiple MVPs, Defensive Player of the Years, won the championship last year, NBA Finals MVP.
You're without 76ers. I think did I say Bucks?
Oh, you switched over to 76ers. Yeah, I apologize. My bad. Embiid. Oh, 76ers.
Yeah, I know I said Embiid. I know I said Embiid. Yeah. It's 76ers.
76ers. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
Yeah, Embiid being out with the COVID thing right now. I'll be honest with you. Out of everything with the 76ers, I'm most impressed with Maxey. I think Tyrese Maxey is playing out of his mind. Yes. It's almost like, Ben Simmons, go do whatever you want to do, bro. I found your replacement already. The guy that has no problem playing point guard. He's scoring buckets. The team really likes him. Doc Rivers gives him all the freedom in the world to do whatever it is he wants to do out there. I actually went to a Philly Nets game earlier in the season, and Maxey's playing great. Philly just, don't get Embiid back. That's another team that you don't have to worry about will be in the playoffs. Every year you have your same 6 teams or 5 teams that will be in the playoffs all over again. It's more about who are those 3 teams that are going to keep another 3 teams that are usually in the playoffs out of the playoffs, because this year it's their time. Go ahead, GK.
Yeah, no. When it comes down to it, like, if whatever aspirations the 76ers have, whether it's making the playoffs, going on a championship run, whatever it is, they got to have Embiid to do it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they lost 4. I mean, it's a little disheartening if you're a Sixers fan that you're almost completely reliant upon him. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was, a MVP candidate before his injuries, right? So, you're talking about one of the best players, regardless of position, in the league. So, like, obviously, if you're on a team and you're with him or without him, it's going to show up. There's exceptions, but in this particular situation, they need him. They need him for sure.
Finish what you were saying, Pete?
No, that pretty much covers it. Yeah. The 76ers is going to be there when it's all said and done. I mean, I don't think they're falling out of the playoff contention or anything like that. Let them get Embiid back. Let Maxey continue to develop. Let them some kind of way figure out a trade or do whatever the heck they got to do to get past this Ben Simmons thing. Because if you think the Ben Simmons thing hasn't been weighing on the team, I think it has been. And I don't necessarily mean by the team not playing well because they don't have him in the lineup. I just think with all the outside noise about it, and it's constantly being questioned about it all the time. You go to a press conference to talk about the game you just played, and people are asking you questions about Ben Simmons. It's just very distracting to have this dark cloud kind of hanging over the team right now. So I feel like when they can move on from that and get Embiid back and be 100% healthy, Tobias Harris and all those guys, they're still going to be a playoff team. Just hopefully not representing the East in the finals, and that's the Nets instead.
We're going to see. So now we're going to get into my favorite part of today's show, and that's the NBA tiers that I had a joy creating last night. GK, I'm going to share screen real quick, and you'll be able to see them. And then we're going to talk about them. I'm going to go one by one, and we can talk about them, right? Let me get it up close. All right, you guys can see it?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're gonna start on the bottom all the way up. So these are the week 3 and 4 tiers, right? Because we're working on week 5 in the NBA right now, right? So at the bottom, I got home sweet home, and I'm gonna explain it all to you guys, and you guys can give your thoughts. Home sweet home just mean these are going to be the teams at the bottom. All right. They ain't going nowhere. They ain't moving nowhere. They're going to be at home, sweet home. All right. When it comes playoff times. Any thoughts in that tier? We got Houston. We got the Pelicans. We got Orlando. We got Detroit. And we got San Antonio.
No, that's right where they need to be.
What about you, GK? Any thoughts?
I think that the Spurs might end up finishing the year closer to 500 because I'm giving Pop the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, for the most part, I pretty much am on the same page with you. I don't see any of those teams really having a chance to make the playoffs. So
you got certain teams like, even the Patriots, if they were even like a bad team, let's just say, just switching to football real quick. Popovich is that same type of guy. Belichick and Popovich are coaches that, you know what? They, without even having the ball in their hands and playing the game, will their team to a couple more wins throughout the season because they're just that good of head coaches. So with that being said, yeah, I agree. San Antonio might be able to pull out a few more wins to maybe not have them in this bottom bracket and have them moved up a little bit. Also, the Pelicans might have something to say about that too. Right now, they're out without Zion. He had foot surgery.
2-12. They're 2-12. I don't know if they got anything to say about anything.
Listen, but they are missing two starters. They don't have
That's
Ingram
true.
and they don't have Zion. So I would like to think maybe they don't have a winning record right now with those two guys, but they don't have 2 wins either.
They got 2 wins.
No. I'm saying if they had Ingram and they had Zion
Williamson.
Oh,
no, okay, yeah. Because they're 1-9 in their last 10.
Yeah, that's I think they said Ingram's missed the last 6 or 7. We haven't seen Zion at all. So with those two guys in their lineup, I'd like to think they'd have 2 or 3 more wins than what they have right now, maybe.
I can agree. So just so you guys know, the tiers, they change every week, GK. So depending on how the team do in the week, before we record Monday, they move up and down the bracket. I don't know if you saw the first one, my first bracket, but a lot of teams moved. Pete did see it, and he could tell you a lot of teams moved. The bottom bracket is pretty much the same. Some teams fell, some teams went up. But yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna try to keep the teams fluctuating as they play throughout the week. So moving on to the second bracket, is called Who Are We? And I think it's self-explanatory. Atlanta Hawks, Boston, the first two. It's like, who are we, bro? We're good teams. We have good players. We just don't got it together. You understand? We just don't got it together. The last two, Minnesota and Sacramento, it's like, yeah, we got good teams, but who really are we? Where do we fit in our conference? Where do we fit out here in the West? So what do you guys think about that bracket?
I think the Hawks and the Celtics, I think it's good that they're struggling now versus getting closer to playoff time and struggling and scrambling to figure it out. Struggling now could be healthy for them because they're both so talented and they've both been playing. Well, the Hawks are pretty young, but the Celtics, those guys have been playing together. So I think to struggle now is good because they can spend the rest of the year figuring it out. And then if they can have their strong momentum in the third and fourth quarter of the regular season, then that's going to bode well for them heading into the playoffs, which I think that both teams will be playoff teams. So yeah, I mean, I don't really see the Timberwolves or Sacramento really. I think that we're going to keep them probably in the bottom 3 tiers for the rest of the year. But I expect the Hawks and the Celtics to improve.
Oh yeah, they're definitely going up some brackets. As long as they start playing better, they'll probably be on the first page. But Pete, what do you think about this bracket?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, looking at this bracket for that tier level, you almost could have put Sacramento and Minnesota maybe even in the bottom bracket.
That's exactly what I was thinking while GK was talking. I was like, nah, yeah. I should have just suspended the bottom bracket.
Yeah, I mean, that was very nice. Hey, listen, it's almost Christmas, man. You're trying to be nice and help them out.
Somebody said they got the Timberwolves finishing top 4 in the West. So,
and that's why they're not doing a podcast.
No, they are. They do have a podcast. There was a podcast who said it, but I whatever. Go ahead, Pete.
Russell and Cat are talented, but
no, listen, Karl Anthony Towns, New Jersey Listen, he's good. He's good. But yeah, I mean, in this tier specifically, most of the attention we're going to be talking about is Boston and Atlanta. Like I said, I think Atlanta might even be on their way now with the big win last night. I get it. No Giannis, no Middleton, but they still won by 20 points. And Trae Young had a massive game. I think he just barely missed a triple double.
Who stuck him? Who played defense on him? Grayson Allen?
That's a good question. I didn't see the game actually. I just know exactly what took place and things like that, what highlights and stuff like that. Who primarily guarded him? I don't know, but he dropped 42 points. So somebody didn't do a good job. I know that.
I mean, when he's on, it's hard to stick him.
Absolutely. Listen, better offense beats better defense all the time. So and we already know Trae Young can score the ball. So
oh no, Giannis was there last night. Giannis played.
Oh, Giannis played last night?
Giannis played last night, 26.
Okay,
26 points.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, even better for Atlanta.
Yeah,
won with
I can accept that one if Giannis is there, but I think missing Chris Middleton is a big piece for them, and I think it's showing
still a big piece.
early. Yeah, it's showing early how big
it is. Middleton's actually a very good on-ball defender too. Who knows? Maybe he would have slid over and tried to guard Trae Young some.
That's true.
You know, as far as Boston's concerned, yeah, Boston's another one of those teams that'll be all right. You know, the certain teams that aren't doing well right now in the beginning of the season, I still expect to see them in the playoffs. You know, you got about 6 teams that you can sit here and say that were in the playoffs last season, that even if they're struggling now, will be in the playoffs this season. It's a matter of who are going to be those 2 unknown teams to make a step this year and get in the playoffs and take 2 of those teams that are usually there out of the playoffs. And taking 2 teams out of the playoffs that are usually there, I don't see it being Boston and I don't see it being Atlanta right now.
I can agree. Moving on, let's get to that third bracket. You know, now we get into a little bit more teams that got a little bit more potential in my eyes. So I got on the rocks, I got Indianapolis, I got the Pacers. I ain't gonna sit here and fumble over words. I got the Pacers, I got OKC, and I got Toronto. Now it's all different reasons why I got them on the rocks, because Indy's on the rocks because they're below 500. I think they're a better team than what they're playing right now. So for me, it's like, are they up or are they down? They need to figure it out there. OKC is on the rocks because they're a young team that's actually showing that if you guys sleep on them, they could inch their way into 8th seed. So on the rocks for them, it's like I'm right on that edge of actually playing to get myself somewhere. They got 5 and 7, they're below 500, but they're beating teams that they're not supposed to beat, like the Lakers twice. Toronto right now is in 9th. They're struggling out there, 6-4 in the last 4. Toronto just need to find out who's going to be their new face. Is it Siakam? Who is it going to be? Van Vliet is bowling out there, so I didn't want to drop them too low into the bottom 2 tiers, but I didn't want to bring them too high because all these teams they kind of up and down for me. They're all on the rocks. So what do you guys think about the third tier?
I like it. I think Nick Nurse does a good job with Toronto. I'm actually not worried about Toronto. I think they play very, very hard. OKC, they played my Nets very well last night. They were getting beat by 20 points at one point and actually made it a game towards the end. Yeah, so and the Pacers always play hard as well. You know, that the Pacers actually have a lot of talent on that roster, man, with with Sabonis and Karis LeVert, who used to play for the Nets, coming over there. They play really good fundamental ball. They really do. So I expect the Pacers at some point in time to get it going as well. Like I said, Toronto always plays well. They'll get it together. I think they're at a good spot on this tier level. They're like right where they need to be at.
GK?
No, I think all 3 teams are exactly where they're supposed to be in this tier. With the Pacers and the Raptors, like what Pete said, they just play really hard, right? Mm-hmm. They play really hard and they play good within their systems. Ultimately, I think they both lack star power to get them over the hump in terms of maybe making a deep playoff run or a championship run. So I don't see that happening. I do see them being, the fringe level, like finishing on the fringe in terms of, are they going to squeeze into the top 8? Yes or no? They're going to be both bubble teams, I think. And then the Thunder is the only big question mark for me because they are super young, but they do have the talent, and they're showing that, they're not going to let anybody treat them as an easy out. But same thing, like I said, I think they're appropriately tiered because I don't think they're a serious threat. But they don't belong in like the bottom tiers. So
All right, moving forward, we got Pete. Now the tiers from here up is like teams that should be there, man. Teams that should actually be doing good. So the next tier, we got just two teams, and it's simple. Are we the same? Bucks and Portland, man. Portland's not playing too well right now. Bucks have some injuries. They're not playing too well with just Giannis. They're looking like they're the same type of team right now. I mean, they both got some good things going. You know, you got Grayson Allen out there in the Bucks. Portland, you know, Damian Lillard had a good game the other night, even though he's still struggling to shoot. But it's similar. The situation, not the situations that they're going through, but just the where they're at in records and where they're finding themselves in position at is really similar. Both of them are 6-8. Yeah, I hit that on the nail. Both of them are 6-8. So for me, it's like, can you tell the difference between Portland and the Bucks right now? What do you guys think about that too? Start with GK.
yeah, I'm worried about Portland. I just think it's going to be the same song and dance as it is every year with them. Not being able to get over the hump. And honestly, I do think it hurts that they don't have Melo anymore. And then with the Bucks, I'm not worried about the Bucks. I think by the time the last part of the regular season comes around and playoff time, I expect them to be contending for, the final two rounds of the postseason. But the Blazers, I don't think. I think they're lucky to be in this tier. I don't see them moving up. I only see them moving down or staying the same. So
I can agree there. The Bucks are just here because I didn't want to put the Bucks too high, and I did not want to put them too low because they are still a great team. They still have the reigning Finals MVP and Giannis, you know, coming off a chip. So you can't count them out. I put them, I think, right in a good spot in the middle because it's like they're going to move up. They're going to start playing better basketball. They're going to move up. But what Portland is on the under end of it, like you touched GK, they're either going to stay there or move down because Toronto could move up. OKC, if they keep playing and beating good teams, they can move up. Boston's going to move up. Atlanta's going to move up. So this bottom brackets is going by mid-season, by All-Star week. Only teams that's probably going to be still there is home sweet home. But go ahead, Pete. What do you think about are we the same bracket?
Yeah, Portland, like GK mentioned, it's the same song and dance. I think after this season's over, unless they do something around the trade deadline or something that we don't know about yet, but I feel like at this point in time, by the end of the season, it's time for some sort of breakup and rebuild to go on with that team because you just been kind of doing the same thing. And it's not to say that Lillard and McCollum can't play together. I don't know where the breakup specifically needs to take place. Maybe McCollum needs to take a step up and let it be his team and let Lillard go somewhere else. Or, maybe Lillard's just a better fit somewhere else, or maybe he just needs more pieces in. The thing about Lillard that I just like so much is the man never complains. Whatever four guys you put on the floor with him, he's cool with it and he goes out and does his thing. And I just feel like, yeah, they'll still make the playoffs. There's too much talent over there, and Lillard's not going to let them not make the playoffs. He's one of the most exciting players to watch in the NBA. I had him actually picked for my preseason possible MVP this year because I feel like he's always overlooked, but yet the man just puts up crazy numbers every single season. Right now, obviously, I look like I'm wrong on that because he's not having that great of a season. But I also think that contributes as well to maybe he's just not that happy there anymore. It's time. He's gone to management about certain things and different changes that should be made, bringing this head coach, bringing these guys. And I don't think all his question marks that he's had have all been answered. So I think at some point in time, it's time to break this up because just making the playoffs for a team like this that's been there already before, that's not enough no more. It's not. It's time to be talking championships now, not just can we make the playoffs. As far as the Bucks is concerned, the Bucks are going to be fine. The Bucks, the key word with the Bucks is just be fully healthy. Let's get Middleton back on the floor. Once Middleton gets back on the floor, he runs this thing, okay? That's no knock on Giannis. We know Giannis is the face of the franchise. When LeBron's gone, he may be the face of the NBA, okay? But Middleton is that guy. Middleton is that guy that can score from anywhere on the floor, drive, shoot, play defense, has great size. He's just so quiet that he's like in Giannis's shadow because Giannis just gets all that attention. But don't sleep. Middleton easily could have got finals MVP last season, and I would have had no problem with that at all because Middleton is a straight baller. So I think they're right where they need to be. I think they're both playoff teams. I'm not worried about each team at all. But if I was going to be worried about anybody, I'd be more worried about Portland because I feel like it's still going to be that one and done or maybe second round exit. And when you're Damian Lillard and you have all the talent that he has and you've been around for as long as he has, it's like, okay, I'm in the prime of my career now. I'm only getting older. When is it going to be my time? When can I hold up a trophy for once? So, yeah, I think you have them right where they need to be.
Right, moving on to the next bracket. Now, this bracket is the teams that I feel like is holding on to that little 8 seed, 7 seed. They're trying to hold on to the in the top 8. And I got, Memphis Grizzlies, the Hornets, the New York Knicks, and I got the Lakers there. So starting with Pete. How do you feel about that bracket?
Yeah, I got no problem with that at all. The Lakers and the Knicks. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna ever call the Lakers a holding on team. If the playoffs were to start in a few days, we call them a holding on team. But with the playoffs a long ways away from now and LeBron not being there, I think they'll all get it right. Even if that means the whole Westbrook thing not working, I'm hearing possible trade talks and he's having too many turnovers and will LeBron and Westbrook work together or whatever. Put all that aside, they're making the playoffs and they're going to be a dangerous team to worry about. So that's a team like when you talk about the Lakers, when you talk about the Nets, when you even talk about the Bucks, they're teams that like no matter what the struggles may be right now, you still just don't worry about them. If they have struggles a month before the season ends, all right, maybe it's time to start talking that way. But as of right now, they're just teams that I'm not worried about. Memphis is super young. They'll get it together. They got a real young team. As far as the Hornets concerned, LaMelo is almost must-see TV. Love watching that guy play. But they're also a young team that's figuring it out and getting it together. And the Knicks are going to be what the Knicks are, I would say, pretty close to what they were last season. Um, it's just tough when you don't have a bona fide superstar on the team. I think that's what the Knicks are missing. I don't necessarily mean it was Carmelo Anthony, even though I'm a big Carmelo Anthony fan. But I feel like since Carmelo, they really haven't had a superstar. That's no knock on Russell and Derrick Rose and all the pieces that they have on there, Barrett and all of that. But I just feel like, I'm sorry, and I said Russell. I meant Randall. My apologies. I just feel like you need one guy that is a superstar that was like, you know what, when it's time to go to, that's the guy we're going to put the ball in his hands and get the final shot and make it happen. But the Knicks are well coached. I'm a big Thibodeau fan. I'm more of a Thibodeau fan than I am a Steve Nash fan for my Nets. You know what I mean? Thibodeau's that guy that gets in your face. He tells it how it is, and he's a really, really good head coach. And I feel weird even saying he's an underrated head coach. He's always been successful with any team that he's controlled, and it's not surprising that the Knicks have had 2 really good seasons in last year, and I feel like they're a playoff team this year. And I think a lot of it is in large in part to the way Thibodeau runs that team.
GK?
I agree with Pete on all fronts, basically. I'll start with the Lakers. So same thing like he said, I'm not worried. LeBron has showed that like he figures it out one way or the other. They'll still be a threat to possibly win the championship. The Knicks, I don't think they're a threat to win the championship because of the same reasons Pete said. Like they don't have enough star power, just to put it blatantly obvious. Like I think they play very good defense. They play really hard. They play really well together. But when it comes down to it, like are they going to be able to beat LeBron? No. Or Giannis, or like maybe they win a playoff series or 2, but that's the end of the end of the line for them. The Hornets, I actually love watching them. Not only because LaMelo being fun to watch, but the development of Miles Bridges, because he's an athletic specimen to say the least. So that's been really fun, and his player efficiency is crazy. Like they've been playing really well. Maybe their front court is a little bit lacking. Are they a threat to win a championship this year? Probably not, but they're going to be fun, especially if they can squeeze into the playoffs. And then the Grizzlies, I think this is kind of their peak. they rely on Ja Morant so much, and I just don't think they have enough to be a powerhouse. I think they're just good enough to be a fringe level playoff team. I don't even think that they can really get out of the first round, to be honest. So I only really see them moving down. I don't really see them moving up.
Yeah, it's a tough bracket because Lakers should be higher. Hornets are 4-6 in their last 10, so I couldn't put them higher, but I didn't want to put them lower because they are a young team, but they play well together, man. They could make the playoffs. Right now they're in 8th seed. They could keep that seed or probably the 7th seed because the Knicks are 5-5 in their last, and they do play good defense, but they're kind of struggling. Um, Moving on to the top. These are the top 4 brackets. Sorry, 5, 2, 5, 5 brackets. Top 5. Right. So at the bottom, we got Better Than You Think. And we got the Utah, we got 76ers, we got LA Clippers, and we got Miami Heat. Now I put the 76ers there because Embiid is hurt, right? But when Embiid is here, they won 6 straight. So you can't sit here and take the 4 losses as, oh, they're a bad team. They're better than we think they are. The Jazz dropped 5-5 in their last 10, but they're the Jazz. They play good ball. I expect them to go back up to probably middle 4th, 5th seed, maybe 3rd seed. They could fight the Nuggets for the 3rd seed. They were at the top of the they did finish number 1 seed in the West last year. LA Clippers, they're just balling right now. Paul George alone has them in 6th place at 8-6. They're playing good ball. Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler is out. They lost a couple of games without Jimmy, but they're 8-5 in 5th place. So I think they're better when they get their pieces back. When the Jazz start playing the way they need to play, they will be probably some mixing up at the top of those brackets. But starting with Pete, what do you think about that last bracket there?
Yeah. Hang on here a second here. Yeah, I mean, it's fitting. Right where you have them is fitting. I mean, the 76ers we touched on before a little bit. Miami Heat, they're just dogs, man. Who would ever thought that Eric Spoelstra would still be coaching the Heat all these years later? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because he started off as a video guy. And then I remember when he got the gig and he's coaching LeBron, Bosh, and D Wade. I mean, it was like 2-3 weeks into his coaching gig with them, and everybody's talking about when is Pat Riley going to come down and take over. That's all they kept talking about. All they talking about. Now you fast forward 10 years later, and Spoelstra is like a good coach, man. He's like a top coach in the league. Players like him. He gets the job done. You're already seeing what he did with Miami in the bubble 2 seasons ago. Nobody saw that. Nobody had Miami in the bubble going to the championship. So, yeah, all them teams. I mean, the Clippers, Paul George is just flat out balling. What he's doing for that team without having Kawhi Leonard, taking the large portion of everything on his shoulders and on his back is just tremendous, completely tremendous. And Utah's Utah. Utah plays good defense. Rudy Gobert, all those guys over there. Yeah. Everybody's got room to move up. I don't really see any teams in that bracket that I would sit here and say are going to go like take a fall and go down. Unless they had some type of catastrophic injury or something like that. Other than that, no, it's just on the rise for these teams.
I would say 76ers have the potential to drop if Embiid doesn't come back. Depending on his timeline of coming back, because they say he could be out a week. If it's longer than that, I might be inclined, but we could discuss it. Me and Pete will talk about it. We can discuss it where they go. But GK, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I like everybody where they're at. We touched earlier on the Sixers that we got to get Embiid back. Clippers, yeah, still without Kawhi, Paul George. The way their roster is constructed, I think they'll be in the playoff race for sure. The Heat, same thing. We just talked about it. Jazz. I don't think the Jazz are a threat to win the championship, but I definitely think they're a playoff team. They just play so well together. They play their system really well. I love Donovan Mitchell. He's a beast. And it's funny that I just had this thought in my head right now. Like, if the Knicks could somehow have Donovan Mitchell, that is the type of person I think that puts them over that little hump that I mentioned, because it's like such a highly potent offensive player, which is, I think, basically what they're lacking, because Kemba, as much as I'm a fan of his, he's not Donovan Mitchell. So yeah, I think that, and then on the other side, like in terms of the Jazz team, I don't think they have enough around Mitchell on the Jazz to get them over that hump. So I think they're just kind of be stuck in the middle, kind of like the Knicks are. But yeah, I think this is a great tier. Everybody pretty much is where they should be.
One other point. I feel like if Kemba was that dude, Boston wouldn't have moved on from him that quickly.
I was going to say something about Kemba too, but I was like, let me just keep moving on, keep the flow going. Because Kemba is struggling out there with the Knicks, man. And everybody's saying this bad about Kemba, bro. Kemba is showing you why he could not still be a Boston Celtic. I mean, because we don't need a guy like that. We don't. I think Schroeder coming in, however you guys want to pronounce his name, was a good pickup. I think later on in the season, they probably move him to the starting lineup. That's what I'm going to think. It probably be, unless you're starting Brown at the 2, because you know they get weird with their lineups with positionless basketball. Sometimes Tatum's a power forward. I don't know why Tatum's a power forward, but. Moving on to the next bracket, what are we missing as Dallas and Denver? They're both 7-3 in their last 10 games. Dallas is 4th, Denver being 3rd. But I just feel like they always seem to be at in the top 5, these two teams. But it's like y'all both just alluded to with other teams. They don't have the necessary means to be a playoff, like a threat to win a championship. Like I don't see Luka and Porzingis as a threat in the West. I don't see Joker as a threat in the West to win a championship, even when Jamal Murray is 100% healthy. So what do you guys on that? Start with GK.
Yeah, so I disagree with you as far as the Nuggets go. I think if the Nuggets are at full health with Murray, then they're a problem because I really like Michael Porter. And I think Aaron Gordon is a little bit underrated. I like their supporting cast. I think it's good enough to really win a championship. And Joker was the MVP, right? So, and not only that, but I don't think Jamal Murray really gets the credit that he deserves. That man is a beast. That man is a top point guard in the league. I don't know how he's going to be when he comes back, right? But if he can be what he was, then yeah, like give me the Nuggets like as a serious threat to be able to win it all. But on the other hand, the Mavericks, I agree with you. I don't think Luka has a strong enough supporting cast, but I do think Luka is that dude. I do think that Luka will win a championship at one point or another. I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't think that. I think that maybe Porzingis' expected role is just a little bit too much. I do think Porzingis is a good player, and I do think he can contribute to a championship-winning team. But if you were going to tell me your big 3 is like Hardaway, Porzingis, and Luka, I just don't think that's good enough. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like the Mavs. I love Luka. I think they're going to definitely make a playoff run. But can they win it all? I don't think so. Can the Nuggets win it all if they're fully healthy? I think they could.
So you think the Nuggets full healthy versus a full health Lakers or full health Warriors, they could beat them in a 7-game series?
I feel like it's closer than you think. And it wouldn't surprise me if they got past either one of them. I'm not going to sit here and say like 100% give me the Nuggets in a 7 games against either of those teams. But I think it's close enough to where, yeah, I'm not going to say, yeah, give me the Lakers for sure 100% or give me the
Warriors.
Yeah, the Warriors. No, I think the Nuggets can go toe-to-toe with either of them.
It's respectable. I mean, what was it, 2 years ago before Murray got hurt? They kind of did make a big push, but yeah, I think they're a team that can make the Western Conference Finals, but I don't see them as a team, just in my opinion, just yet, as a team that could actually be a threat to go to the finals and actually win the chip. Can they get there? I mean, the Suns made it yet last year, so I wouldn't. That's why I say I can respect what you're saying. The Suns made it last year, so Denver could definitely, barring all the cookie crumbles falling in their lap the right way, could definitely make it there. Pete?
Yeah, I mean, because we're only a certain amount of games through this season right now, it's harder for me to say. So I'll go back to last season. I'll be honest with you, man. A healthy Jamal Murray, I think that whole Western Conference Finals and how the championship turned out could have easily went in some different direction. I was not very big on Phoenix. I didn't think that Phoenix was like, I just think everything fell the right way. I think they got the Lakers at the right time. And the other teams that they beat in the playoffs, they got at the right time with the right injuries and things like that. But I feel like Jamal Murray is a huge piece. And when I say huge piece, I don't mean, oh, he's a huge piece because he's their starting point guard. No, he's a huge piece because he's Jamal Murray. And he's that freaking good, in my opinion. So I feel like the fact that Denver even made it as far as they did last year without him, I think is crazy. I think the Aaron Gordon trade was amazing. I think they did a lot of good things to make that team better and fit around them with everything that went on with Jamal Murray. And I'm ready for him to get back on the floor because I think immediately when he gets back on that floor, that team is completely better. Michael Porter and all those guys. They even got a lot of good role players on that team. And they're well coached as well. So that could be a scary team, man. It really could be, especially when like teams over the last few years that you didn't expect did as well as they did. Your Atlanta Hawks, your Phoenix Suns, the year before that, the Miami Heat. Like these are teams that nobody picked to be finals teams or conference finals teams, and they did it. And with the Nuggets doing as well as they did without Jamal Murray, how could you go downhill from there? I kind of feel like. As far as Dallas is concerned, it's GK mentioned with their big three. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even call that a big three. I call that a big two. I think Hardaway is great, and I think he's underrated. Why I say not a big three is because I don't trust Porzingis. And it's not that I don't trust Porzingis' talent. I don't trust Porzingis' health. I feel like every time I turn around 3-4 different times throughout the season, the man comes back from an injury and then a week later he's out again. Bad legs, bad feet, whatever it may be. And I feel like sometimes it's like, come on, man. I play sports too. You know what I mean? How many times do I suck it up and play? And I pay to play in the leagues that I play in. You know what I mean? I'm not getting paid millions of bucks. You're getting paid millions of bucks. A lot of times these coaches and this training staff will sit you down just because you say you're not 100%. But let's be real. Could you really be out there helping your team? Probably, but you want to take that night off. And I'm not trying to question Porzingis' commitment or whatever the case may be. But come on, man, you got to be a little bit more available to your team when your team needs you in the biggest situations.
Agreed. Moving on to the next tier. So these top three tiers is like right now my top teams in the game, right? But for these next two is like you gotta say they're top teams because they're winning and they're beating good teams. All right, they're beating teams they're not supposed to beat. You got the Cavs at 9-5, and you got the Wizards at 9-3. The Cavs are there because they're a bigger surprise to me, but I couldn't put them higher on the list. And I didn't feel like right now in this week, these last 2 weeks of play, that they deserve to go low on this list. But at GK, if you feel like the Nuggets should be higher, then I'm not opposed to switching the Cavs and the Nuggets.
Well, the thing is this, I don't think that they should be higher because like we're in the present, right? So the fact of the matter is they don't have a healthy Murray right now. And like Pete was saying, Murray is that dude. To me, that man is star power point guard. So they need him back. And I had ACL and meniscus reconstruction surgery as well. And from my personal experience, you're able to play come 12 months post-surgery, you're able to play, but you're not really you again, if ever, for another maybe 12 months after that. So yeah, no, having the Nuggets where they are is fine. But in terms of this bracket, the Cavs, like for me, both these teams, Cavs and Wizards, like what a surprise, right?
Look how far they came. Look how far can they take it? It's
so,
crazy.
Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, and Ricky Rubio off the bench, right? That's pretty fire, in my opinion, because Rubio is the experienced vet and he can teach them what's going on. And then the other two just have so much talent and athleticism, right? And then Jarrett Allen, I love, and Evan Mobley, like the young buck. So there's a lot of really good things going on right there for them. Can they make a championship run? Probably not. can they squeeze into the playoffs and maybe win a first round? Probably. Like I wouldn't surprise me. But like as we talked about some of the teams earlier, I don't really see them moving up in terms of tiers or power rankings or being more of a threat. I only see them maybe moving down. But as a Cavs fan, you got to be excited right now. And then the Wizards, pretty much any points with that I already talked about earlier. So
yeah, I think that's as high as the Cavs going to be, unless they go on a 20-game winning streak. They might be in the spot the Suns are. But Pete, what's your thoughts on the third bracket?
Yeah, I like it. We talked a lot about the Wizards. We've been giving the Wizards a lot of love, and it's definitely well deserved. A lot of the love just needs to go to the coaching staff, the general management, and the ownership for coming in and making the moves and the trades that they did to bring in the young pieces. I mean, you signed Dinwiddie to a really nice contract, and that was off an ACL tear. I mean, you didn't know how much you could really trust Dinwiddie coming off of an injury. Everybody doesn't respond the same way. He's playing out of his mind over there. So you bring in Kuzma, who didn't look amazing with the Lakers. He's playing out of his mind. Montrezl Harrell always came off the bench in his career. He's playing out of his mind. So everything that the Wizards did, whatever vision that they saw, that they said, you know what, we're going to take a risk on doing this, because that's what it was to me, was a risk. It's all worked out perfectly, at least for the first part of the season. So definitely kudos to them. As far as the Cavs is concerned, it's crazy. I always look back to the past, and it's like the Cavs always like do the right thing when it comes to like their draft picks, whether they have the first overall pick or whether they have not the first overall pick, they always do the right thing with their pick. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Mobley, like these guys are all guys that at some point in time, they drafted them. They had them on their draft board. They took them, like Kyrie Irving, for instance. Kyrie Irving played 1 year with Duke and literally missed pretty much the whole entire season. They still made him his number one overall pick. And what happened? He helped them win a championship in Cleveland. So when Cleveland makes a pick in the draft, they know what the heck they're doing over there, because they don't strike out hardly at all when it comes to doing that. And with Mobley, with Sexton, and with all those guys, I think they're playing real well. And the biggest piece to me, and I'm going to say this, being a Nets fan, I miss him now, is Jared Allen. Jared Allen is balling out of his mind, blocking shots, rebounding, alley-oops. He's doing it all. The only thing I can say is if we had kept Jared Allen, I wouldn't have James Harden on my team right now. So that's the only thing that really makes me okay with losing Jared Allen. But I don't get to watch a lot of Cleveland Cavaliers games. But when I watch those Cleveland Cavalier highlights, all I'm seeing is Jared Allen. And you can't miss the guy. He's 7 feet tall with an afro that puts him at 8 feet tall. Okay. And the guy is literally balling out of his mind over there. I'm super, super happy for him. The guy couldn't have been happy finding out in the middle of the season that you're leaving the Nets, which were picked to possibly win the championship last year. Now, guess what? You're going to Cleveland. He couldn't have been happy at that. He was
I don't think he belonged there. I don't think he belonged in Cleveland.
Yeah, he was the starting center for the Nets. And it's like, oh, you're on a possible championship team, and now we're throwing you to the Cavs. But guess what? He's with the Cavs now. It's the second season with the Cavs. He's more acclimated with them. He's now figured out that system, and he looks great for them. I mean, keep in mind, they parted ways with Andre Drummond, okay, who's a very good center in our league. And Jared Allen now has the keys. He's that center on their team, and he's playing just as good as almost any other center in the league right now. So I'm really happy for the guy.
Word. Okay, moving into the second to last tier. And this one was made just for the Suns, hot in the sun for the Phoenix Suns, because they're 8-2 over their last 10, second in the conference. They started off a little rough in the first 2 weeks and a half. I had them low on the tiers. They climbed up a little bit, but I think they dropped from here. This is my thing, maybe 1 or 2 tiers, because I think, like you guys said earlier, some good teams are going to start playing better, like the Bucks, Atlanta. So to see what they do, the Phoenix Suns might not stay there. But what do you guys think about Phoenix Suns? Last bracket, Dallas had their own bracket, and it was called Not Who You Think We Are. Now the Suns have their own bracket, and it's called Hot in the Sun. Starting with you, Pete, what's your thoughts on it?
I think the Suns are going to be right exactly what they were last season. Not meaning that necessarily they'll be in the championship, or not even meaning that they'll get over the hump and win the championship. But the team is pretty much, for the most part, still there, and they're balling the same way that they balled last year. Chris Paul, all he does is get older, and it doesn't seem like it affects his game at all.
Not at all.
The guy, and when you're not a point guard anyway that needs to score the ball to be successful, I mean, the guy just can put everybody in the right place at the right time. He's even slightly undersized nowadays with how big a lot of these point guards are. And it doesn't show like it's a bad effect on the team at all. He really walked right in the door and immediately made that team so much better. And that goes to show you why he's going to be the first ballot Hall of Famer that he's going to be. Booker is freaking an unreal talent, whether it's driving, whether it's shooting. He's got one of the best strokes in the game. Yeah, they're going to be where they are. I mean, like I said, I didn't expect them to be in a championship last year, but the cards all fell the right way with injuries and different things like that. And like we said before, we're never going to knock a team for winning because the team they played against was injuries, because the injuries could have went their way and not your way. You have to play the team that's in front of you, and next man up, everybody has to step up, and it all worked out for them. So I think Phoenix is going to be right there. I think Phoenix could easily be, or definitely should be, going into the playoffs, a top 4 seed. They should be hosting the most home games in the first round of the playoffs, no matter who it is that they're against.
GK?
I think the Suns should not be slept on. I think they could win it all. Do I think that they have a better chance than any of the other threats? No, not at all. I'd say there's a couple other teams out there that have a better chance than them, but would it surprise me if, come next year, they're the defending champs? No, not at all. I think that maybe that's a possibility. And like Pete was saying with Chris Paul, he doesn't rely on his athleticism whatsoever. Basically, I would compare him to like Tom Brady, where it's his biggest strengths are like knowing what to do, knowing what needs to happen, knowing where guys needs to be. And like, the other thing is the Suns play elite playoff level defense all the time. And yeah, I just think with their roster construction, it's ideal for Chris Paul. I think he has the pieces he needs and wants. So yeah, I think the Suns are the real deal.
Yeah, they are, man. The Suns are a really good team, man. And I think just because of their slow start, people will probably be like, look, the Suns ain't the team that you think they are. No, they're gonna probably be somewhere in the top 3 to 4 brackets all year for me. As long as they keep that high level
right
play.
now.
Yeah, as long as they keep their high play up. Going into the last bracket, top of the top, who can be touched? Who can touch us, bro? Who can touch the Golden State in the Nets? Nets is the only team in the East right now that's 8-2 in their last 10 games. All right. Golden State 8-2 in the West, top of the leaderboard 11-2, Brooklyn 10-4. What do you guys thought starting with GK on the top bracket?
So, well, starting with Golden State, I think it'll be healthy for them if they can take a couple L's, because once the end of the season comes around, basketball gets a little different. Like what are they going to do in terms of front court matchups when, if and when that becomes an issue? I believe in Kerr. I believe that that's something they could figure out. But for them, I think if they're challenged in that manner at some point during the regular season, that'll be healthy for them. But they're so good at doing what they do right now. I do think that that's strong enough for that they could win the title playing the way they play right now, even without Clay. With the Nets, it's all about their roster, bro. They have so much talent. I don't care that some of it's old. I don't care, because nobody really needs to be the entree. They just need to be the seasoning and the sides. Like, they could, like, any of them could at any given night drop over 20. Anybody like on that team, I feel like. And Harden and Durant both are like two of the most potent scorers ever in the history of the NBA. Like, either one of them could go off for 50 any given night. And they play well together. Nobody's really playing selfish in that. My only problem is schematically, like, are they willing to, when it comes down to it, be more willing to dive into like basketball IQ and figuring out tactically and strategically like how they can beat other teams? Or are they just always going to go back to like I'm gonna rely on my talent and just try to score more points than you every time. Like, because I think that could be their downfall, is if they're not willing to figure things out strategically. Like, are they always just going to be like, all right, Harden or Durant, one of you two guys is going to have to drop 45 or 50 tonight in this playoff game in order for us to win? Because I don't think that that's a good recipe for success. I think there's going to be times where they need to just figure out strategically like how we're going to beat this other team.
Pete?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was gonna say it's funny that these are our two top teams. Well, it's not funny because they're playing that out of their mind. But what's funny about it is it's must-see TV tomorrow night. They play tomorrow night in Brooklyn. We could be looking at a preview of our NBA Finals tomorrow night. That is must-see TV. I'm a big Nets fan, and at the same time, if I had a favorite team out west, I'd sit here and call it the Golden State Warriors. I'm always a fan of my shooters. Curry, Clay, love them to death. They are must-see TV. I can't wait for Clay to eventually get back out there. I think these teams are exactly where they should be, because if these tier levels, I mean, we can't always make tier levels based on what you used to be or what we think you're going to be. Why not base tier levels on what you are right now? Okay, I feel like what you are right now is why the Wizards are where they're at right now on this tier level, not basing it on like, oh, well, you'll fall off eventually or you did nothing last year. No, we put you there because that's what you're proving to us right now with the record the way it is right now. And right now, the class of the East, in my opinion, is the Nets. And right now, obviously, with the record that they have, the class of the West is Golden State. These two teams are playing out of their mind and easily could be a preview of what the championship looks like.
Yeah, you hit it you hit the nail on a coffin, bro. Bang, because that's what I made the tiers for, bro. It was to show people how teams are doing in that moment, not, oh, we're projecting them to finish here, or we're projecting them to be this way. My tiers or our tier list is going to be predicated on week-to-week basis of how the team plays, not how one player plays, how the team plays, and that's how we rank them. So the Cavs could lose five in the next week, and they could fall. The Wizards could lose 5 in the next week, and they could fall. But I'm pretty happy that you guys like the tiers. It made me happy. But go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, let me throw in one other point too. Something that could be like so freaking scary, right? Is like, so we know the whole COVID thing and everything with Kyrie Irving and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do people really realize that, like, technically Kyrie could be playing away games right now if the Nets allowed him to?
Yeah.
Like right now, Kyrie's allowed. He's still part of the Nets organization. He still gets paychecks for away games. He's not getting paychecks for home games because it's his choice to not get the vaccination and be eligible to play in home games. But he still gets paychecks for away games, even with him not being there, because the team is the reason why he's not there. He's not the reason he's not there. The team got together and said, listen, you're either with us all in or not at all. We can't do this type of part-time type of thing. So that just goes to show you, like, the Nets are balling out of control right now. They're playing the way they're playing. They got the superstars on the team that they got. And it's like, if they wanted to even be better than they could, every time they travel, they could just, oh, guess what? Kyrie's in the starting lineup tonight. How you going to deal with that? How you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with that? But the Nets didn't want to go that path. And as a Nets fan, I'm okay with them not going that path. I couldn't agree more. You're either all in or you're not in at all. I can't do the part-time thing. Does he make our team better? Will we be a better team? Come on. No one's going to sit here and argue that point at all. Kyrie is an unbelievable talent. But at the same time, it's like, if the Nets really wanted to get like grimy and really, really put it on the rest of the league, they could sit here and say, you know what, man? We're sorry, Kyrie. Come play the away games with us. Then what would teams do? It'd be they might have the record right now that Golden State has right now, you know? So the Nets are really good even without Kyrie, and they're definitely in a place that they need to be. And as a Nets fan, I'm happy to say that.
All right, final thoughts, GK. We're closing the show out. Final thoughts.
Well, I just had a couple of thoughts about what Pete was just saying. I agree with him 100%. I just I'm almost glad in a way that the Nets decided to handle that the way they handled that, because it's not fair to the other guys on the team, like especially the other guards and the other guys bringing the ball up, because then you're saying like, oh, well, like now you need me and then now you don't. Like, I'm giving you my all at home and then that's my ball, that's my rock. then all of a sudden you're going to take it away from me every time we go on the road. Like you can't really do that to a player. So I'm glad that they handled it the way they did.
Any other final thoughts from you guys?
I'm just gonna say must see TV tonight and must see TV tomorrow night. We just touched on it with the Nets Warriors. I mean, I'm going to be glued to that TV. I almost wish we were doing this on Tuesday to talk about that game on Monday. I know we'll get to it on Friday, but
we'll
that game, I am so excited to see this game. It just shows you how the two teams actually measure up. And I get it. The Nets don't have Kyrie, and I get it. They don't have Klay Thompson, but at the same time, I'm actually not expecting Kyrie at all this entire season. Yeah. So what our roster is right now is what it is right now. They're only going to get better when they get Klay, but it's almost like get better. They only got 2 losses. So this is must see TV tomorrow night. And also too, as a football fan, it's must see TV tonight as well, because I got to see this tonight with Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham out there, and then it makes it more exciting. And I don't mean this. I hope Robert Woods recovers and comes back 100%. And I'm so sorry that he had this injury. Yeah, I was just saying, like, I'm super excited to see Odell play tonight. With Woods being injured, you're going to really get to see what he's going to be like in the first week with the team. And another thing I just want to mention too, if you guys are not on it yet, or the people out there watching and listening aren't on it yet, get on that Manning Monday night broadcast. Oh, yeah, the Manning's Monday night broadcast is unbelievable. I don't even watch the normal Monday night broadcast anymore. I watch Eli and Peyton talk about Monday Night Football. It's like almost must-see TV. They're hilarious. They have a different guest on every quarter. It's almost like this might be the new way to watch Monday Night Football. Whoever thought of it, whose ever idea was it to come up with doing that, the Mannings doing football, I much rather listen to than Brian Greasy and the other guy that's on there with him, Riddick and whoever else hosts the show. The two Mannings together doing that Monday night broadcast, it's fun, it's hilarious. And they also, when they're not joking around and having guests, they're giving firsthand insight on what's going on. They stand up, they show you how they do things. They pull up a little iPad, they go over plays. It's a good thing that Monday Night Football came out with this, and it's making Monday Night Football that much more enjoyable.
Anything left for you, GK?
No, I agree with Pete 100%. I love the Manning cast. A lot of people hate on it because some of the guests have been cringy at sometimes, but I mean, I can overlook that easily because I think it's cool that they have guests. I think it's cool they have guests, and like you said, they are very entertaining to watch. They're funny, and then they'll break down plays in ways that the regular, the mainstream cast doesn't break down. So I'm with you 100% there. And then in terms of Odell, yeah, I'm excited to see him tonight. I'm not expecting. I don't have high expectations because I doubt he's learned the playbook fully yet. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch him out there. So.
All right, guys. I want to thank you guys for dropping in GK, Pete. This is great, man. We got it's a good thing, man. Got two educated people on sports here to talk sports with me. So I appreciate you guys. For all you guys out there listening on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about. But yeah, just want to thank you guys, man. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, this is From the Sideline podcast. From the Sideline podcast. And we want to thank GK for stopping by. He watched the Jets game last night. He should still be asleep now. He should definitely still be asleep, but he stopped by and spent some time with me and Pete. And I want to thank, Pete, who's coming into his own on the show, man. I want to thank you guys, man.
Thank you,
yeah,
bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. You quarterbacking a great show right now, man. So thank you.
I appreciate the help, though, man. I can't do it without you guys.